Another week is here. It's a Monday morning, as you say, Teraba morning or Teraba week. And here we are on this third day of March, celebrating the gift of life one more time. My name is Benjamin Akatbo.
And I'm Sweetie Abochi. Last year, you know what we did to mark Ghana month? We spoke a local dialect. Maybe we'll give it a try this year. Yeah.
TV sets are just money I can see you. And I can see so I can see what no pay.
Akpena milaba gbaha mega dogoina ndi ya migo na nyagbogbo arugboga na mika leva VHO dukoya akpena mi. This is the AM show Konyenye Sweetie Abochi, and let's tell you briefly what we have in store for you. So of course, we'll start by serving you the AM news. After that, we'll sit with our guests to review the newspapers. Dr. Samaye is a member of the NDC Communications team, and Dr. Ezekiel Obeng is from the NPP Communications Directorate. After that, we'll bring you AM Sports, and of course, our big stories come right after.
Well, first on the chopping board, we are contemplating the minority in Parliament boycotting an orientation program for members of Parliament. Why? They cite the cost component of the program. It's too much, and that they will not be a part of it. But Speaker Bagman has said the decision to hold the event at the Serene Hotel in the Volta region is the result of a comprehensive evaluation of several factors, but the minority says there is political bias. Is there bias? Is there no bias? We'll be contemplating that as our first major issue.
And then we'll take a look at the fire outbreak at the Northern Electricity Distribution Company warehouse, that is NEDCO warehouse in Tamale, which destroyed transformers, insulators and other equipment. We'll take you there live for updates and implications on power supply. Folks, welcome aboard the AM show. Join us with your comments, with your thoughts across all social media platforms. We are Joy News on TV.
Well, still can stay for the news, but Sweetie, that will be quite an issue, right? Because NEDCO supplies the northern belt of the country. If this has happened, what could be not just the cost implications for all of us, but supply challenges when it comes to electricity? That could be some real issue in there. Well, still can stay. We'll be serving you the news up next.
Live from Kokomemle, this is the AM News on the AM show. Let's get into the details. The Volta Regional Minister James Gunu says the devastation caused by coastal erosion in the southern parts of the Volta region is a national security threat, calling for emergency interventions to curb the destruction and ensure the safety and well-being of residents in the affected communities. Speaking during the presentation of some relief items to the victims, he stated that government will prioritize the well-being of the people to mitigate the destruction caused by the sea. Over 100 homes have been destroyed as the sea claims communities along the southern Volta. There's more in this report.
Makafi Atai was born and raised up in the Agave community of the Ketu South municipality in the Volta region. Her home and survival are threatened by the devastations of coastal erosion, which continue to wash away her community. The recent incidents left the community devastated as homes and cemeteries, among others, were affected. This is my father's house. I stayed here since infancy. The sea used to be some kilometers away, but in 2019, we started experiencing coastal erosions. We were at the roadside, far away from the sea, but the erosion had gotten to us. We see the sea hit the wall. It makes a loud noise, and then the wall collapses. It is having a psychological effect on us. The Volta Regional Minister, James Gunu, was left in shock after assessing the devastation caused.
Has actually made it a national security issue. Houses have been washed away, cemeteries are gone, and a lot of things, and the psychological trauma that the people are going through, including children and women, calls for urgent action. That is why we are here. Now that the road is also going, and from the look of things, communities and the land behind the road is far, far below sea level. So if nothing is done urgently and we allow the sea to cross the road continuously, the degree of devastation that we'll see cannot be contained.
In the interim, some relief items were presented to the over 510 victims affected by the recent disaster in the enclave. However, the residents appealed for the completion of the sea defense to protect their communities. We don't need rice or maize. All we need is for them to complete the sea defense so we can be safe and take care of ourselves. A Ghana gas shelter project where about 15 units of 2-bedroom apartments are to be constructed has stalled. Residents are praying for its early completion to help in the proposed evacuation exercise. Fred Kwame Asari, Joy News, Agaveji.
From the Volta region, let me take you up north because a fire outbreak at the Northern Electricity Distribution Company warehouse in Tamale has destroyed transformers, insulators and other equipment. The Ghana Fire Service responded promptly, dispatching fire tenders from the metro and hospital to bring the blaze under control. There's more in this report.
The fire, which started around 2 p.m., ravaged a portion of the warehouse, destroying some equipment. According to Public Relations Officer of the Ghana Fire Service, Baba Hudu, the fire team arrived in good time and was able to contain the fire.
Tamale Metro Fire Station and the Tamale Teaching Hospital Fire Station crew arrived to the scene, and upon arrival, the fire actually engulfed a section of this warehouse. So quickly, they have to ensure that fire do not spread to other parts of the warehouse. And within no time, they were able to prevent the fire from spreading. However, considering the nature of the fuel, fire was actually becoming aggressive when water is used to extinguish. So because of that, we have to also deploy other means of extinguishing it. So we use the foam concentrate to be able to subside the fire.
Corporate Communications Director of NEDCO, Maxwell Kotoka, has assured that the fire would not disrupt power distribution in the area. He explained that the affected warehouse is the central storage facility for the company's equipment and materials.
What we have seen is that a good number of items have suffered, yes, but we haven't done a thorough examination of the situation or a thorough assessment of the situation. It may just well be that fire may have touched some of the packaging, but if you examine thoroughly and we are lucky, probably we can retrieve some items from the fire. It's early days yet, so we cannot put a figure to it. What we can assure the general public is that we will continue to do our level best, and as much as is humanly possible, it will not affect the continued supply of electricity.
Let's get into politics now. And the minority in Parliament has refused to attend the 3-day orientation program for members of the House, currently ongoing in the Volta Serene Hotel in Ho. Now, according to the Speaker of Parliament, Alban Bagbin, the minority, through a notice, protested the cost of the event, hence their withdrawal. He described as unfortunate their decision for the development of the country's democracy while addressing the opening ceremony of the orientation program. There's more.
We lost a very great opportunity because the turbulence of Parliament once again has shown. I only saw a WhatsApp message last night that our colleagues, our brothers and sisters of the New Patriotic Party have opted out, giving a reason that is completely unacceptable. There's good reason why we choose venues for this. It's not partisan. There's always a search party, and they go around, discuss with the various hospitalities, look at the cost components, the facilities, their suitability, the convenience of your movement, because there are other pressures on you. And there are score marks before we decide where to go. There's no partisanship in this at all. This time around, the Parliamentary Service followed the same. That is what is done. The final results are brought to the Speaker. And until I have a very good reason why it shouldn't be at that place, I just give my approval. And to have 276 members of Parliament and staff, because the staff work with you. And if you don't build the capacity of the staff, the institution, they will not be in the position to serve you, to provide what you need to be able to satisfy the immeasurable, unlimited demands of the country, of your people, and of the world. So it's usually a large number of people. The reason is that the cost component is too much. And they don't want to be part of that. We don't want to talk. Please don't allow your political differences to enslave you. Don't be also enslaved by our history. And that's one of the biggest challenges we have in this country. What our grandfathers did is what has enslaved us.
Hashtag no galamsey, hashtag stop galamsey now are still on. But in a rare move, illegal miners have blocked the river Ankobra at separate points within the Pristia Heman town and Awudua, a small community in the western region, preventing it from flowing. Joy News can confirm the miners are now mining with excavators directly in the Ankobra River Basin. Now, Erastus Asari Donko reports mining on the Ankobra, which started over a year ago, has now turned the major water source into a stagnated pool. He is part of a special advisory team set up by the Minister for Lands and Natural Resources to investigate the extent of illegal mining across the country to inform policy direction, and now he reports.
To better understand the workings and impact of illegal mining activities, the Minister of Lands and Natural Resources set up this team of experts to embark on a fact-finding trip across the country. We made a stop at the estuary where the Ankobra joins the sea.
A green-looking Ankobra River. This is the estuary where the river Ankobra joins the sea. It has not been this green for a very long time, but it could be deceptive. We are here to tell you the story of a green Ankobra and probably why it is looking green, though what is making it milky brown is still happening across the length and breadth of this great resource. Come with me as we find out what could probably be a mirage.
We took a ride on the Ankobra from the estuary to gauge the mood of the river. At high tide, the sea has made tremendous gains into the Ankobra, spreading its green salty water to cover the polluted shade of the river.
How does it taste like?
It tastes like salty because the sea have entered the Ankobra. So it's salty, you cannot drink. But Ankobra itself is not salty.
But about 40 minutes into our boat ride, the color starts to change. At Eshiemu, we come across mining activities inches away from the Ankobra, violating government's buffer zone policies. This man, who identifies himself as Lopez, showed us documents covering his concession but admits the illegalities on the grounds. The real color of the Ankobra is now visible from here. At Awudia, close to Pristia, we made a shocking discovery. The Ankobra has been blocked and contained for mining purposes.
And those of you who have been contemplating and praising the new color of the Ankobra, this is the real color of the river Ankobra. As you can see, this is a mining hub within the river itself. So the river has been blocked, redirected, and you can see that it's not really flowing well. And it's camped here at Awudia.
Even more shocking is the complete blockade of the river at Pristia Heman, close to the bridge. The illegal miners have separated the river and built an embankment to prevent the river from flowing. They are now mining directly in the basin of the stagnated Ankobra River.
What we have found here at Pristia Heman is what can be described as total madness. This is the Ankobra River, and it will shock you to know that illegal miners, nature criminals, have been able to block a major river like the Ankobra, and so you can see the blockade over there. They've blocked entirely the river. So the flow from upstream has been blocked here, as you can see. And then they are mining in the basin itself. That is what we are seeing here. And it is shocking to know that an entire community superintended over this, supported it with the authorities, the chiefs and people supporting the blockade of a major river like the Ankobra for illegal mining purposes.
The river is now a stagnated brown pool beneath the Pristia Heman Bridge.
For these people, their survival depends on a clean Ankobra which is not polluting the sea. For the local economy to thrive and for their survival to be assured, government needs to work on a pollution-free Ankobra. Reporting for Joy News, Erastus Asaredonko, Ankobra Town, Western Region.
Moving on, the Cape Coast Teaching Hospital is highlighting its achievements and challenges during its 2024 Performance Review Program, dubbed Advancing Care with Resilient Sustenance and Effective Stakeholder Engagement. In his address, the hospital CEO, Eric Kofi Njedu, stated that research conducted by the teaching hospital had contributed to the evidence-based practices and policy formulation over the past year. Abigail Nkrumah has more in this report.
At the 2024 Performance Review Program of the Cape Coast Teaching Hospital, the CEO of the hospital, Eric Kofi Njedu, highlighted some of the evidence-based practices done by the hospital in the past year.
Research. The hospital actively engages in cutting-edge research across various disciplines, contributing to evidence-based practices and policy formulation. Notable examples are exceptional dyspnea incidentally diagnosed in psychosis, the importance of post-discharge clinical site infection surveillance, adaptation of the wound healing questionnaire universal reporter outcome measure for use in global surgery trials, what they call the Talon One Study.
The Central Regional Minister, Ekopin Eduamwa Ochri, shared his thoughts on the theme for the program, commending the health institution on its services.
I am well aware of the remarkable stride made by the Cape Coast Teaching Hospital in enhancing healthcare services. The hospital's initiatives such as free eye surgeries, plastic surgeries, cleft lip operations, orthopedic surgeries, and ENT procedures have relieved many vulnerable citizens.
Festus Kran, The acting director of Pharmaceutical Services, who represented the health minister, had this to say.
Financing for healthcare is a critical component of providing high-quality care and sustaining resilient health systems.
From Cape Coast, Abigail Nkrumah Esau's reports for Joy News.
Did you know Mole National Park is nearly 1.5 times the size of Greater Accra region? But that's not all. Mole is the only game reserve in the country that spans 3 regions and 5 districts, offering an unparalleled blend of biodiversity and cultural richness. Northern Regional Correspondent Martina Bugri has more in our Ghana Month series for today.
The Mole National Park is home to Ghana's largest game reserve, arguably the reserve that has the largest natural animal inhabitants.
Welcome to the Mole National Park. In the Ghana Month series, we take a tour around the park to show you the beauty of the Mole National Park and the animals in there, the plants and the birds as well. Come along with me as we go to the wild.
Established in 1958, it was named after the River Mole. A visitor to the park would definitely live there with fond memories and inspired. The park has over 60 mammals, among other animal species. Rakim Yusuf tells us about the park.
In summary of the park, we have 94 species of mammals, 33 reptiles, 9 amphibians, 350 bird species, and over 700 tree species.
The animals are welcoming, which offers tourists the opportunity to get up close with these animals.
Behind me is an elephant, one of the several animals you would find when you visit the Mole National Park. Friendly as they are, you can get closer to these animals.
Mole National Park, we have only the savanna elephant. Scientific name is Lazadanta africana. They are bigger than the Asian elephant and that of the forest elephant. The second difference is that whether it is a male or female, they have the ivory or the tax. Asian and forest elephants is only the males that has the ivory. These are animal species that can stay 50 to 60 years before they die. Few instances, some exceed 70, maximum 75 years.
So what makes Mole the preferred destination for visitors? Patience Teteji shares her thoughts.
So big that it covers a land area or a land area of 4,577 square kilometers, which is very greater than almighty Greater Accra. Mole National Park is so unique in the sense that it has this variety of biodiversity in terms of flora and fauna. Talking about the flora aspect, we have diverse plant species moving for the diverse and distributed unevenly even in the park. So it makes Mole quite unique compared to other protected areas. Though we are networked one way or the other, and also it's interlinked with other cultural sites where you have ancient or archaeological aspects that falls within the park.
For those looking for a serene atmosphere, the park's motel is an ideal choice. Gordon Lau, the facility manager, highlights its uniqueness.
We are structured in a way that we are able to capture almost every packet. That is, we have different types of rooms. So depending on your packet, and you go in for that. So the experience here is actually different from the urban area, dining whilst there's wild animal around that harming you. People dine and then the elephant is very close to them. By the pool, the elephant is feeding on a flower or whatever. And that makes it so unique.
Whether you are a nature lover, wildlife enthusiast, or simply looking for a tranquil getaway, Mole National Park has something for everyone. For Joy News, Martina Bugri reporting.
Coming up next, business updates with Benjamin Akakpo.
Welcome to Business Update. Now, the Ghana Real Estate Developers Association says its investment trust will be operationalized very soon. Immediate past president of the association, Patrick Ebubonfo, says this is part of efforts to address demand-side challenges in the housing sector. He spoke to Joy Business at the association's annual general meeting.
Our industry has been facing challenges when it comes to the home mortgage financing. The banks are doing their best, but it's not enough. And for real growth to take place in our industry, we need to have a real estate investment trust portfolio. That in our case, we are pushing so they can champion our home mortgage finance activities so that members can freely build and concentrate on building. And what they do is that the real estate investment trusts come and take over these properties once they are all built. And then they on lend, or they sell off, or they rent it out to the members of the public. So the developer gets his income back to continue building. So these are some of the things, the reasons why we have had to go out of our way to set up the real estate investment trust.
In our next story, the Commonwealth Enterprise and Investment Council says it aims to leverage the African Continental Free Trade Area to boost partnerships and investments in Ghana and across the continent. Just days ago, a delegation from the international agency facilitating trade and investment throughout the 56 member nations of the Commonwealth held discussions with President John Mahama on building and mutual growth through investments. Rosie Glazebrook is the Chief Executive of Commonwealth Enterprise and Investment Council, and she's been speaking with Joy News' Blessed Suga.
There's a number of opportunities here that happen now. I think having the new government and having the smooth transition means that businesses will be able to look at Ghana and understand that there will be a more secure way of looking at investment here. I think the first is to have the honour of meeting your new president, who I met yesterday with our delegation, who are with me from Canada, UK and Sri Lanka. My visit, I go to Kenya later today and then on to Tanzania after that, is to understand how we can leverage these links. There's 21 countries of the Commonwealth in Africa, so using that block to really support the AFCFTA is part of the things that we want to do. And as the Commonwealth Enterprise and Investment Council, we have focused on, we'll be focusing on it and have done so in the past, on how we can put that on the global stage as an opportunity that really needs to be grasped.
And that's how we cap off our business updates for the morning. Handing over back to Sweetie Abochi.
Thanks, Ben. And that wraps the AM News Bulletin on the AM show. Let's get now into our news review segment. Dr. Samaye is from the NDC Communications team. Dr. Ezekiel Obeng is from the NPP Communications Directorate. They join us to review the newspapers. Please stay. Live from Kokomimle, this is the AM show on the Joy News channel, and this is the news review segment. I'm Sweetie Abochi, and I'm doing this together with Benjamin Akapo. And let's introduce our guest to you in studio. This morning we have Dr. Samaye with us. He is a member of the NDC Communication team. Welcome aboard, sir.
Thank you very much, Sweetie.
Ben.
Well, Doc, so here we are. We'll have your counterpart join the conversation shortly from the MPP's end, but you know how we do it. We'd like to take your quick thoughts on any pertinent issues you'd like to talk about.
Yes, thank you very much. Good morning to our viewers and your good self. This morning, I'm glad to announce that His Excellency the President will be the special guest of honor for the National Economic Dialogue happening at the Accra International Conference Center at exactly 8:30 a.m. It is number 4 on the list of 26 interventions His Excellency the President earmarked in his 120-day social contract. It is important that we do that. All of us in this country know where we find ourselves in presently. our economic circumstances. It's there. Evidenced by the draconian domestic debt exchange program that happened under the previous regime, evidenced by high inflation rate, high depreciation, soaring gross national debt, and what have you. Interest rates, policy rates, not one that is worth mentioning. So, as a president who is sensitive enough, who is sensitive to the pertinent issues disturbing the people of Ghana, setting up the National Economic Dialogue is a step in the right direction. For me, I am extremely happy about it. Okay. We'll be interacting with civil society organizations, members of the general public, the media, students, seasoned financial and economic analysts who will share with government their thoughts on exactly what homegrown measures are to be put in place to guide our, budget and how we can reset our economy going forward. So I'm entreating the media and everyone to take the opportunity to share with government what they think government should do to revive and reset the Ghanaian economy.
Talking about reset, and you also mentioned the sensitivity of the president. There's an argument, going on over the weekend. I think most Ghanaians poured out their reactions against the construction of the National Cathedral, even before the monies that were sunk into it became an issue. Yeah. And you're talking about the sensitivity of the president. I want you to, I'm giving you the opportunity to let it make sense to us how we are commissioning, a Hajj house when it's also a religious edifice, so to speak, which was what we were against with the National Cathedral. What is the argument from the NDC camp?
Yes, thank you very much. I think that yesterday the Minister of State Government Communications, the Honorable Felix Kwachofosu, made the point that the Hajj Village is clearly an establishment or a project of the Ghana Airport Company Limited. No taxpayers' fund has been invested in that project. In fact, it is surprising that the members of the MPP are in a haste to criticize the government needlessly. In fact, when you read, there's a Ghana web publication where Hassan Tampuli said Mohammed's move to council for MPPs already progressing new Hajj Village is laughable. In one breath, they are the ones that started the Hajj Village. In another breath, John Mahama is cutting short. So John Mahama is lampooning National Cathedral by constructing Hajj Village. I think that we must be consistent with our policy. You cannot appropriate and reprobate at the same time. The fundamental points must be made that the Hajj Village is a project by Ghana Airport Company Limited. No taxpayers' money has been invested in that project. In fact,
will be invested in it?
No. The points must be made clear. John Mahama is a leader who is sensitive to the plight of the people of Ghana. He will not waste billions of taxpayers' money into building what many Ghanaians do not think that may not necessarily be presently essential. Just like $58 million was invested in the National Cathedral, which ended up in the biggest hole. It will never happen under His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama. He was just invited to that program as the president, ceremonially. It is a project.
I think your point is made. Yep. We just hope not to find out later that.
Sure, no problem.
Because you remember how the National Cathedral started. Yeah. Oh, it's going to be solely funded by, and then we ended up where we did. But just a quick question on the bit about using money efficiently. There's been the boycott by the minority in terms of that latest orientation for members of parliament at the Walter Serene Hotel. And they say they are not going to partake in it because it's going to amount to wastage of state resources, especially on the back of where we are now. John Mahama is president and his party has a wide majority in parliament. So I can say by extension, the president. How do you react to that?
Oh, for me personally, I don't think that there's any problem with members of parliament. With Parliament, a constitutionally independent, constitutionally mandated body with 275 or 276 MPs and their speaker having a retreat or orientation in, a a hotel where they will have enough conference center. I mean, they have the necessary, privacy and all that. I don't think this constitutes to deliberate dissipation of public affairs. I think that we are blowing this out of proportion. This is not the first time Parliament is having a retreat. And if the people of Ghana are worried about anything, it is not members of Parliament having a retreat. There are clear cases where everybody in this country see that public funds are wantonly being dissipated without recourse to the sensibilities and sensitivities of the people of Ghana.
I get your point, just for the sake of time.
Yes, it is important.
But while I get your point, we are at a stage where every peswa counts. So if there's some thinking that, oh, okay, we are doing it, I do know that it's like the pot calling the kettle black. Yeah. But at the same time, whatever peswa we can save as a state ought to be saved. Yes. And even if the minority comes across a certain way based on their own track record, you must still look at the positives in there, sift the wheat from the chaff and say that, okay, can we still look at this and see whether we could have had more savings?
Exactly.
Speaker Bagman has said that this was the best. They looked at this and that.
Of course, it is important that we made the people of Ghana know that His Excellency the President will not deliberately do anything to harm the public purse. This is a president who has reduced the number of ministries from 30 to 23, reduced the number of ministers from 124 in the first term of the MPP to 60. He has reduced the number of
the last one was 80. The last one was 80.
But it started from 124. President Mama.
Yes, but that was not the immediate precedent.
But
let's be fair.
80 or 84 is not the same as 60. So this is a president who is firmly committed to protecting the public.
I think you've copiously elaborated on this matter for the sake of time. We have Dr. Ezekiel Obing. He's with the MPP Communications Directory. He joins the conversation. I'm sure you know how we do it here. We'll give you about a minute and a half. Talk about something you are interested in. You could decide to talk about some of the issues he's also brought to bear.
Yeah, good morning, and sorry for entering quite late. It's a huge traffic, unprecedented, on our roads to your studio this morning. And good morning, CT. So clearly, I could listen to my brother and understand where they find themselves currently, and the fact that they need to come and defend everything. And I felt a bit sad listening to him and trying to create the impression, as it was started by the minister in charge of government communications on social media, finding it difficult to explain the role of governments on the Hajj village. Clearly, the same Ghana Airport Company that some time back purchased a certain Christmas tree to decorate our airport to welcome people into our country because of what the previous administration did with Christmas festivities, in the country, were deemed to be profligate, were deemed to be insensitive, because yes, they've purchased a Christmas tree. The Ghana Airport Company belongs to the state. So in other words, they were just misusing our state funds. The same Ghana Airport Company today is going to use state land to build a certain structure. The same Ghana Airport Company today is going to use some monies, whether directly from the state coffers or for or by National Airport Company. And we are being told that it's not taxpayers' money. So clearly, it's very difficult to juxtapose the two and find the logic clearly in this argument for us.
So Hajj village,
yes,
right, and our Muslim brothers and sisters are always, going to Mecca to pray, and there's been a lot of talk. I know there was a 13,000 Ghana cedi reduction in the fare going there versus a Christmas tree. Mind you, the issues, let's put them into context. There was Paul Adumotre as board chair. There was how the Christmas tree was secured. That was a problem. There was the cost of the Christmas tree. Those were the issues here. What are your issues with the Hajj village? I want us to be pinpoint specific.
We are very specific. We are very pinpoint. The issue, no one had issues or no one has issues with what is being done for our Muslim brothers and sisters. No one is against a Hajj village. In fact, it's a project that was started by the Kufuor administration. Shortcuts inaugurated for the project to kick off. It's only clear that we are having a second shortcutting for a specific project.
Right.
So in essence, in principle, no one is against the Hajj village. But what our brothers said when they were on the other side some time back, yes, you can talk about the cost, you can talk about the person leading Ghana Airport Company in terms of their board membership or whatever. The issue was that they berated the previous administration and made a whole lot of accusations against the government simply because certain monies were used, and those monies belongs to Ghana Airports Company. And they went ahead to draw the inference that whilst parents are suffering, whilst Ghanaians were suffering, we're rather spending monies that belonged to the state on Christmas tree. And that the Ghana Airports Company then was a state institution. Today, we are being told that whatever monies that's going to be used for the project is not coming from the taxpayer, but from Ghana Airports Company. So all of a sudden, the Ghana Airports Company is no more state institution, as they themselves alluded to. The Ghana Airports Company, monies that belong to them, which by extent belong to the Ghanaian or being paid for by the Ghanaian taxpayer, all of a sudden, those monies do not belong to the Ghanaian anymore. Okay. And the Ghana Airports Company is no more a state institution. That is where we have issues with. The double tongue we are having. If you are in opposition, you say one thing, and when you are in government, you say a different thing. Ghanaians just want to know, how much is even the airport company going to inject in this project? Is the land for the state or not? So no matter how you look at it, clearly there is some state commitment in it. And just admit it. Using syllabi and antonyms and synonyms to describe what belongs to the state, what belongs to the taxpayer, directly or indirectly, will not wash. It's a matter of the country using a state institution for a specific project, and that is where the principle lies.
Thank you. I have a struggle with some things, but I don't want us to
just 30 seconds. Just 30 seconds.
I don't want us to go back and forth on this. 20 seconds. Let's run this.
The Ghana Airport Company, their books were used to build the Terminal 3 of the Accra International, of the Kotoka Airport. As we speak, that edifice is paying for itself. At the last reckoning, billions of Ghana cedis had been raised to pay for itself. It is the same as the Hajj Village, where the Ghana Airport Company is using to facilitate pilgrimage activities, where income will be generated to pay for itself. Thus, the Christmas tree bought under the MPP pay for itself. What revenue is it raising for Ghana at a time where millions of Ghanaians had lost their monies through draconian domestic debt exchange program, where people's wealth had been expropriated? I think that we must be clear with our narrative. We must not compare apples with oranges. We must be consistent and not throw in...
20 seconds. Let's get into the newspapers.
We must be honest and candid with our debate. Yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
So I have the Daily Graphic newspaper. We'll get to you in a bit. Daily Graphic says, 32 years on, Parliament yet to establish public interest committee. Stop photocopying Ghana cards of customers. Bank of Ghana warns banks. T-bill rates drop as government reduces domestic borrowing. Sophia Kufu questions policy on Ghana's extractive agreements. Book on company law best practices launched. And on the back page, West African gas pipeline resumes supply. Medina hosts Regional Sanitation Day. The first story I want to get into would be 32 years on, Parliament yet to establish public interest committee. The immediate past chairman of the Public Accounts Committee of Parliament, Dr. James Klucha-Veggie, has called on the government to take deliberate steps to strengthen the operations of the Internal Audit Agency. Let me skip to the part where he says, he explained that the Constitution required Parliament to debate the report of the Auditor General and point out, where necessary, to the Public Interest Committee to deal with the matters. And as at the time he was chairman, then Majority Leader Osei Chairman Zabuzu had pledged to establish that committee, but as we still speak, that has not happened yet. Gentlemen, let me start with you, Sam. What do you make of this? 32 years on. I mean, just last week or so, we saw reports from the same paper, Daily Graphic, about irregularities in the public sector, public institution, amounting to over 99 billion Ghana cedis. And we don't have a public interest committee in Parliament to be, following up on these irregularities and recovering monies when necessary.
Yes, I think that for me, if it comes to this present regime, it's been just about 2 months since we came. Over the years, there have been public, interest and accountability. They have committees where they investigate these matters. For me, over the years, there has not been enough governmental commitment to some of these things. In fact, when the MPP regime started in 2017, 2018, there were incremental numbers as far as the losses we make in our public sector. Nothing was done at the time because the government itself was actually neck deep in the whole matter. Going forward, under the leadership of His Excellency the President, enough work will be done. The President has shown more than enough commitment to the fight against corruption, slaves, graft, and reckless waste of our public funds. This is solely a parliamentary business. Fortunately for us, we have the numbers. We are going to crack the whip. We are going to rein in public officials who deliberately cause financial loss and dissipate public funds. It is a matter that we will look at going forward.
But you know, the story led with 32 years. This isn't the first time that's
no problem.
This administration.
No
so I'm just pointing that out.
No problem at all.
Let me take a quick comment on this as well from
Ezekiel. It's still obvious that my brother is still in the campaign mode. We are talking about a 32-year-old issue. Yet the whole over 3 decades of a certain, inertia we've had towards a certain process. It's all been lammed up and put on the shoulders of the previous administration. When within those 32 years, it was equally had 16 years of democratic ruling. So clearly, my brother is still in the campaign mode. But of course, we need to go beyond the politicking and look at what is in the interest of the country.
Sorry, I just want, you just said that over which 32 years?
The news item you reads that over 30 years,
that's
government...
his Fourth Republic.
Come again?
No, I just want him to clarify, because he said that over these...
I mean, within the 32
period,
years...
there's only been 16 years of...
No, I'm saying that the NDC has had at least 16 years of democratic ruling within those years. And my brother is lumping
I just wanted to
everything.
understand.
My brother is lumping all the blames and, let's say, failures in quotes of previous administration in regards to this issue on the MPP and Akufo-Addo's 8-year ruling. So clearly you can understand they are still in the mode of politicking and campaigning. But of course, we've moved beyond elections, we've moved beyond campaigns. There's a government in place that needs to act. You inherited the good and the bad. So everything that's before you today, the Ghanaian wants to see commitment that the government of the day will do things in the interest of the country. We all want things to be done properly. We all want to see our money being put to good use. We want to see our money put into the educating the youth of the country, providing infrastructure by way of education, health, roads, and job creation for the country. So yes, we are all committed to making sure that our parliaments and state institutions are up and doing to check all these malpractices. But let's veer off the tangents of politicking when it comes to issues like this.
I'm going to lump these 3 stories together and come to you, and then that'll be it for the Daily Graphic, actually. It says, minority rejects proposal to reduce numbers. That is on the SONA debate. Minority in Parliament has objected to a proposal from the Business Committee of Parliament to reduce the number of minority members of Parliament during the State of the Nation address debate and instead replace them with more members of the majority. And I'll pay Assembly members allowance, President Mahama affirms. And last story I want to get out here, Sufaya Kufu questions policy on Ghana's extractive agreement. A member of the Council of State, Sufaya Kufu, has questioned the policy guiding the extraction of Ghana's mineral resources and how the proceeds are apportioned between the state and foreign investors. Which of these piques your interest first?
I think that I'm very interested in the extractive sector issue raised by the former Chief Justice. I think that the people of Ghana have longed for this debate. I have visited many mining communities where there is no evidence that there is even mining of a mineral resource going on there. The people of Ghana have been saddled with this sort of arrangement. When you go to places like Takwa and Obuasi and some other places, it will shock you to know that billions, if not trillions of dollars have been moved from those areas, but there is no evidence of commensurate, infrastructure, development, and all that.
And whose fault is that?
Of course, it's a problem that has longed for a long time. I will be happy that maybe we can initiate a certain conversation. Government will take this issue up so that, proper reforms and review of our policy can be done.
It's good you mentioned that, because in this Fourth Republic, we've had NDC and NP.
Of course.
And so if we are portioning blame, since not all of us can lead at the same time,
of course.
you, the political parties, should also accept blame. The sort of deals you cut, even here in Africa,
if we're juxtaposing those with other African countries and where they've got to and what you do.
Yeah.
So yes, I agree with you. You go to Obuasi and some places, and some areas are ghost towns.
Yeah.
But it's also because you, the political parties, have failed. You failed Ghanaians.
Of course, there's no doubt. In fact, when you go to Burkina, the military leader, I'm told, has set up a very nice gold refinery, which is making millions for them. Unfortunately, in Ghana here, you have a situation where Tema Oil Refinery presently is on its knees, but a private investor has been, supported to do what Tor should have been able to do. We must look at some of these things and, all of us will call to the attention of leadership to look into the matter so that the proper things are done. I'm in for any conversation that will seek to increase our shares in some of the mining contracts that have been given.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's no doubt that clearly God has blessed the country with a lot of mineral deposits. And there are things we read in the books, even as far back as JHS, looking at the income streams of the country and how much we get from our mineral resources. And we've grown to come and experience these things, and due to the nature of work we do, had the benefit of hindsight to read about our roles and our percentages and how much we gain from these transactions. And clearly, if you look at the policy and how much a country like Ghana earns, if you give opportunity to a foreign company or a private company to come and do prospecting, discover certain minerals in large quantities, and go ahead to commit monies to mine those minerals and how much comes into the country. Clearly, I believe it's something we should take a second look at, and how government can find means to at least domesticate everything and perhaps let Ghanaians take the lead role in these processes. And I believe that if we're able to empower ourselves, we're able to empower our individuals and private businesses in the country to take lead role in these things. The mere sense of patriotism and being a Ghanaian would at least help us. There are so many things that these companies can do to help the country, aside the revenue streams from those minerals. So corporate social responsibility, for example, there's a lot that can be done. We've all had the benefit of traveling for the purpose of campaign to these mineral deposited areas. We've been to Western region, we've been to Ashanti region, and the story, as my brother narrated, it's not different.
Right.
So it's something we all need to have a national, non-partisan, some debates, agreements, come to a consensus as Ghanaians to fight this and let the Ghana, their country, have the highest stakes and the best of interest to be accrued and be used for the people of Ghana.
Right.
Just
Thank
a bit
you.
on the minority and the majority call to reduce the numbers of minority members on the committee. Clearly, this comes at a backdrop of what the excellent job the minority is doing in Parliament. The mighty minority. It clearly shows that powers sometimes do not lie in numbers, but rather the quality of the people who make up those numbers. So kudos to the minority for a yeoman's job they are doing in Parliament. I believe that even if there are 30 people or 31 people on the committee and the minority has just 2 reps, I believe the voice of the minority will be louder, be more sanitized, and it will make much, much, much impact than the rest. So yes.
Do we need your voice to be louder?
Oh, loud, a positive noise, not a negative noise.
Is that what we've seen since this new administration started?
We can go out and ask the Ghanaian to give their verdict. Everyone has his own verdict. From where I sit, the minority has done well, and they are a very positive, loud noise in Parliament.
All right, let's get into some other papers.
Kudos to the minority in Parliament.
Just 10 seconds. You see, the debate,
going back,
on the mining
back and
issue,
forth like this.
on the mining, it's extremely
quickly.
important. Not even the shares that the government takes. In fact, the state-owned mining companies, some of them are folded up. When you go to Akotia mine, it's no more. How is it that private mining companies are doing well, but state mining?
The Ghanaian Times
I think that
newspaper.
it's important that we look at it.
All right.
Channel hatch profits into charity. President directs task force. Government position on free SHS assuring that, according to Child Rights International, 7 die in separate incidents in the northeast region. Galamsey fight. Time for workable solution, not blame game. Reverend Sapon says so. NLA Director General appointed African Lotteries Association Vice President. Then there's also 77th anniversary Christianborg crossroad shooting held in Accra, and book on history of Pungu and the Butu family launched. That's an interesting bit. You want to read about it. But the Vice President, Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman, on Friday led the flag-raising and wreath-laying ceremony to commemorate the 77th anniversary of the February 28, 1948 Christianborg crossroad shooting incident. The shooting, which led to the deaths of 3 ex-servicemen, Sergeant Ajiti, Corporal Atipo, and Private Odate, was the impetus of the 1948 riots, a catalyst for the Gold Coast's final push for independence. These were the men, and if you look at other incidents, the women who risked their lives, sacrificed in this case, to ensure that we became independent. And last week, of course, when we had Kwame Nkrumah Botiu here, he brought up the issue. Now, we've already looked at the Hajj issue, but this angle, I think we should just take a quick stab at. President Mahama has directed the task force organizing this year's Hajj to channel any extra money that would be realized from the pilgrimage into charity. At a sword-cutting ceremony for the construction of a permanent Hajj village in Accra on Friday, President Mahama said the Hajj, one of the 5 pillars of Islam, was a spiritual journey of purification and not a profit-making enterprise. So that's the point in there. Should he be telling them what to do with the remaining funds? And that charity, could it also go into supporting others who sometimes want to travel but do not have the means? I don't know. But then government position on free SHS assuring. The Executive Director of Child Rights International, Mr. Bright Appiah, has commended President Mahama for his unwavering commitment to Ghana's free senior high school program. He described the president's stance as a crucial step in ensuring equal access to quality education for all Ghanaian children. In a statement signed by Mr. Appiah, CRI, that is the Child Rights International, strongly opposed suggestions from some stakeholders that boarding students should start paying for their accommodation and feeding. Gentlemen, these 3 quick stories for your reflection.
Yes.
I'll start with you. No, let me start with Doc here.
On the issue of the free SHS, it became topical ever since the NDC took power, and it's very uncertain the path we are charting. Clearly, it's government going to continue the free SHS as it is. Is government
what is uncertain, Doc? Because I thought in the SONA, with the repetition of the president, I thought it was as clear as...
At a point, we are organizing an education forum to look into free SHS and the way forward, and at a point, no.
So you can't organize a forum, right?
Clearly, if you believe within yourself that indeed we are not going to touch the policy as it is, what is the forum for?
Do you remember that Dr. Yawase Educhum, the former education minister, at a point, though they did not want to use the word review, they did mention that indeed we had come to the point, together with other government officials, where some second look had to be, brought to bear when it came to free SHS, even on the back of the stipulations of the IMF in our agreement. Do you remember those?
From what I remember vividly, and we had a lot of meetings with the education minister, as government communicators then, and what Dr. Educhum meant and kept repeating.
What he meant. What did he say?
What he meant, I'll come there. What he meant and what he kept repeating is that to him and the government, the MPP's point of review, whatever you want to clothe it with, is that we still want to see the chunk number of Ghanaian children in schools, because they had to deploy a certain strategy in the last but one or the previous admissions before the elections, where they had a task force in every district to practically and physically go into the homes of every Ghanaian to go and speak to their parents to bring their children to school. So even with the numbers and the increment we had with the introduction of the free SHS, we still had some students who were not patronizing the second cycle education. So to us as MPP and then administration or government then, our review and continuous review and improvement was that we still want to see every Ghanaian child who has to be in school. So yes, that's our position. So if any word was used to describe it then, whether review, whatever it is, that is what we meant. Is it the same review as this current administration?
What do you consider a review? And in fact, from reports and interactions we've had with the likes of the Africa Education Watch, IFES and others, your review is not necessarily what even these stalwarts in education It's not limited to that. And let me just make a quick point before you go on. Nowhere do you find a system, not even in the UK, not in the US, where there are some freebies at that level, where you have everybody on board. And we don't have enough time, so I can't get into that. Last week I was mentioning here that in the UK, even for the beneficiaries of free education at that level, some components are taken stock of. So you get to know who can pay what. And some families are paying for food, others are paying for a host of other items. It is not
your advocacy here?
It is not a free-for-all bid that once it is free, everybody can just come through and you are paying.
We are not running UK system. We are not running our free SHS based on what UK does. We are not running our education and how monies are spent on education. It comes the same issue with health, for example. The NHS pays for everything in the UK. Is that the case in Ghana, even with the NHIS? So yes, you can make a comparison.
You make a point supporting my point. You know why?
No, I'm not.
You don't even have the resources the UK has.
No, that's what I'm saying.
That makes for even more reason you should think better into that.
I'm saying that the UK has its own system. The UK has a way of supporting the education and parents. We are not running what UK is running. We are running the Ghanaian educational system and what we believe needs to be done to the people of Ghana. So the comparison with UK, yes, we can do academic review and do some literature review.
Well, someone else also thinks
and read into that.
They think they'll do something else with the review. My only issue is you're not actually answering my question. What makes you think that the NDC
I'm saying that from where
will not go ahead with free SHS when the president at the SONA
where I sit, because yesterday even my friend sent me a text that the brother, I don't want to mention the name of the school, I can show you the text. He's been asked to pay 500 cedis and PTA dues that's under the free SHS and being catered for. Students have been asked to pay. So yes, you can come out and say that we are going to continue whatever. Just recently.
Do you remember though with what happened with the PTA? Do you remember that in many schools, parents were paying extra to ensure that their children could have certain facilities that they could eat? Do you remember that?
It wasn't coming from the government to ask anyone to pay those monies.
No, but it came to the point where on the back of need, many schools were doing that.
Schools
do you know that or you
Many
didn't know
schools
that?
volunteered to do that. Thank you very much. Yes, recently, parents have been asked to pay 550 cedis for BEC registration. Hitherto, it didn't exist under the MPP.
All right.
So clearly, it's enough of the rhetorics. Let's see what you want to do. We will have some period from now till September when schools or students are supposed to go back from first year. We will see. Until then, these are all just mere rhetorics. And the outcomes of the various education forums would come. And we'll come back Doc, to this issue.
Your thoughts. And please, concise, don't
Of course. You see,
we don't have too much time.
Yes, of course. The MPP's hackneyed claim about President Mahama or the NDC cancelling free SHS is clearly untenable presently. We listened to the President during the State of Nations address that he will continue free SHS and even make it better. I sit on this platform as a government spokesperson and I'm saying that in just a month ago, the President released 200 million Ghana cedis to Ghana Education Service in fulfillment of his promise to decentralize feeding of free SHS. That monies were given to various districts and headmasters to go onto the market themselves to buy their food. In fact, we have seen appropriate, commensurate improvement in the feeding of free SHS students. They themselves have gone on social media, TikTok, Twitter. They have done several videos telling the people of Ghana that the MPP told them that President Mahama will cancel free SHS. It is surprising that as they speak, for the first time, they are being fed with egg, sausage, and chicken.
Dr. Aye, the quick thing I'll say is just quickly. You see, when you politicians sometimes speak, I always want to. It's early days yet. It's always easy at the start to start doing some of these things. In secondary school, I remember a long time ago. I mean, what we were eating. I don't think that's the quality that our students have been eating nowadays.
Yes, of course.
For a long period.
Of course.
It's all well and good, and we saw the videos and all of that. Let's stick to the plan. Let's not get carried away.
Of course.
And start, you know, it's good to pat yourself on the back.
Of course.
But there's a long period. 4 years is a long time. Let's focus on that rather than. And these things are aspects of the free SHS.
Yes.
But it's not everything.
Of course.
So let's be slow in.
Exactly. That is what
patting ourselves on the back.
President Mahama is not one that will initiate a program and not know, and it's not sure that he'll be able to carry it through. The man has promised that he will create a fund. It's been 8 years. No definite plan of or source of funding has been allocated for free SHS.
Okay,
the
so
president is making the
quick
point
I want to add.
This is the man that set up ESLA
to
pay energy debts.
Right.
So if he tells you that he will create a fund for free SHS, there is no room for any doubt.
All right.
In fact,
Dr. Aye, let me just come in with this.
My time.
There's something else that yes, but it's important I interject where I need to. If you go to page 12, you also see that CRI, Mr. Bright Appiah, he talks about something. He while he commends the president, he says that he strongly opposes suggestions from some stakeholders that boarding students should start paying for their accommodation and feeding. What's going to be the approach of the NDC on that aspect?
To be very honest with you, every Ghanaian is open and is allowed to bring on board their suggestion. It is up to government to pick which of them that the government should implement. As we speak, I cannot second guess the president on.
We have heard some members of the NDC, some people tied to the NDC, suggesting that if this is going to happen, then those who are boarders would have to maybe make some commitments, make some payments, and all of that. Is that the reality or not?
From where I sit, I have not been privy to any information of that sort. The president has not given any indication to this effect. In the coming days, after the National Education Forum, the president will communicate to the people of Ghana exactly his plans towards free SHS. But the point must be made. The people of Ghana must be rest assured that President Mahama is committed to the improvement of free SHS. He has made the point that not only is he improving feeding as he has done now, he will create the necessary room for us to do away with the double track that we are currently faced with. Why are we doing double track? Because of inadequate infrastructure. President Mahama, as part of his plans, will in a matter of a short while build classroom blocks, dormitory blocks to take away the phenomenon of double track.
All right.
The National Education Forum,
in one breath, just 20 seconds. In one breath, the president has been concise and he has told us that he's going to continue free SHS. In other words, we are waiting for the end of Education Forum and for the president to come and communicate to us his views and direction of free SHS. So which one should we take?
Thank you.
The one that says that
yes,
I'm going to continue, or the one that says that I'm waiting for Education Forum to end their deliberations, and I'll come and tell Ghanaians what I want to do free SHS.
Please, let's get into your papers.
And we are happy.
You are eating into your time.
We are happy that our kids are eating sausage and eggs and their omelets and all that in schools, and headmasters are being given money to go to Dome Market and Sasawa Market to purchase their own food. It should continue like that.
All right. Would you like to get into the custodian newspaper?
So yeah, the
headlines, then you pick maybe one.
Minority boycotts MPs retreat and to stop NDC's wasteful spending. Clearly, this is a government that believed that we should spend wisely, in quotes, yet when they had opportunities. A lot of states, agencies and institutions belonging to the state's education facilities around, University of Ghana, UPSA, even in Accra alone, the schools we have. If moving to Legon is a problem, you could at least, for the purposes of exercise and healthy living, walk from Parliament to the Accra City campus. Yet the government that wants to cut waste and profligate spending is rather choosing a resort to go and rest MPs to have good time at their retreat. So clearly, they can't be trusted when they tell us that. But do you
remember though some of the meetings where you had to go to Rock City all the way?
Yeah, and
do you remember those
ones? Sami and the NDC
politicians are very interesting.
And NDC
you politicians
spoke vehemently against those things. So we're expecting that instead of even driving in vehicles, they rather choose the approach of healthy living. Walk from Parliament to Accra City campus, which is just a short distance. Exercise, go and have the meetings, save the country a lot of money instead of riding in vehicles that consume huge amount of fuel.
The only thing I'll add to that though,
a resort.
I wish
have fun.
Just a quick one. Just a quick one.
Water region.
I would like to maybe sample some of the minority MPs. Sweetie, Abochi, it would be interesting to find out how many of the minority MPs would be, very. They are always, all the MPs are always in their cars. How many of them would like to walk from,
Parliament to Accra City campus?
Accra City campus.
I think politicians enjoy this.
Yeah.
Even though you're in opposition, you enjoy, you know, punching loopholes in everything that's.
Let's remind us. Let's not punch loopholes. This is a reminder.
Our time is practically up, so let's
reminder. One question: do you agree that there are some challenges within the free senior high school policy? Do you agree that there are some challenges?
There are challenges.
How do we know how to target the solutions if we don't review?
There's nothing wrong with reviewing.
So
as it stands, let me give you an example. The NHI Act has been over 10 years, and people have called for it to be reviewed. But the principle which established the NHI is not going to be touched. Anything four shots of anything that the Ghanaian parent or guardian needs to expend some monies is not free SHS.
I understand your point.
I think
maybe in another conversation,
I would suggest, Dr. Aye, that you go into your
yes, but
there's no time.
But
there's no time for it.
I must.
So it's either you do your paper or you make this point.
I must say that your team has been very unfair to me this morning in terms of the time.
Unfair.
I came to meet
you. Let me Ejaben calls for passage of Corrupt Practices Act to combat corruption. I think that we have reached a point in our governance where we must, crack the whip. Just like the president has stated, he has put in place motions through oral and what have you to crack down on corruption and retrieve whatever loot that has occurred in years past. We have situations where officials who are persons of interest in corrupt activities have fled the country to countries where we do not have any extradition treaties with.
Do you have evidence to back the claim that they fled the country?
Of course, they fled the country. There is no doubt about it. You are a person of interest.
Who have fled? For example, if sometimes people talk about Gifty Owari and all of that, she's given reasons why she's outside the jurisdiction and that she will be back. I don't immediately remember them, but I've read something.
Look.
Ken Oforiatta, some people were talking about Ken Oforiatta. He's given health reasons, and he's the minority leader of New Market has stated when he will be back in town. So unless you want to mention names, whom are you talking about?
The fact that you have given reason doesn't mean your reasons are tenable or it must be.
So when the people come back into the country,
it's true.
You can deal with what.
There are times that we can see clearly that this is just a plot to evade.
All right. We have to.
But the point
but let me just do this, gentlemen, please. Let's let the hosts moderate this. The Ghanaian publisher anti-LGBTQ bill, no U-turn will be tolerated. Reverend Intim Fojo to Mahama. There is an interesting story that perhaps, if time had allowed us, we would have got into.
Can we just a minute each?
NLA, no. Our time is up. NLA boss appointed vice president, and then backbench hypocrisy exposed over MP's orientation. And then Akufo-Addo says, may Ramadan strengthen our resolve for peace and unity. Sweetie, would you like to wrap up for us?
That's it for the news review segment. Those who join us, Dr. Samaye, member of the NDC communications team, Dr. Ezekiel Obeng, from the NPP Communications Directorate. Stay with us. Muftau Nabila Abdullahi serves you AM Sports.
We'll bring you sports now on the AM show with me, Muftau Nabila Abdullahi. And last week was an exciting week for school sports, especially in the super zonals that are happening in the Central and Ashanti regions. Well, it was an event that brought so many students and scouts to scout young talents in athletics especially. Well, stakeholders involved in the sport have called for huge investment in the sector if Ghana sports wants to be able to get the right talent that will fit into the various national teams in the country.
Speaking on Sports Link, Ghana Athletics President Bar Fuseni commended the performances of various schools at the recently concluded regional super zonals in the Central and Ashanti regions. He, however, emphasized the need for increased investment in sporting infrastructure within schools to enhance training and athlete development, ensuring they are well prepared to represent the country in future competitions.
The equipment, athletics equipment, maybe doctor and my friend will tell you, sometimes it's quite expensive. I remember when we were going to buy pole vault, the vaulting poles, fiber optic vaulting poles. One was about 30,000.
30,000.
Yes.
30,000 Ghana cedi.
Ghana cedi, yes,
Wow.
for one vaulting pole.
Okay.
But that is not to prevent the headmaster from buying those things, because we need those equipment to be able to train these athletes. Last year there was a viral video going. Somebody was doing pole vaulting. It was not the child or the PE master's problem.
I felt very bad about that video.
Yeah. Yes, because they didn't have the equipment to train the student with.
Yeah.
So the student will the headmaster will trying to improvise and try to teach the people. But if they had gotten those facilities in the schools, they would have taught them well.
Yeah.
So everything comes down. Now we've spoken a lot about the leadership, but everything comes down on the provision of the equipment and the training fields.
On his part, the director of University of Ghana Sports and Wellness Directorate, Dr. Austin Lugutera, called for a reorientation of schools' attitudes towards sports, stressing the need for improved support for physical education teachers.
These are PE teachers who are in the system, who are enthusiastic, want to achieve. But invariably, we have some headmasters who frustrate them, who intimidate them, who not only try not to kill sports, but make you feel inferior, make you think that you don't matter in the system. And that same language is carried out by other teachers who think that PE and sports is just something somewhere. But remember, these are things that elevate the name of the schools. Abawa is here. We did sports together from the north. And you could see the difference between PE masters as they appear. Schools that cherish sports and their heads cherish sports, you see the student and you see their PE masters and you yourself realize that this is sports coming.
I see.
The schools that don't cherish sports and you see their PE masters and see their students, you see an apology of sports coming. That's what happens. And it's sometimes disheartening. So remember, I came from a Palm Secondary School where sports was loved. Then when I transitioned to Ajamota Secondary School, I had challenges.
Head of Right Sports Services, Yao Sechi, also urged schools and sports federations to sustain the momentum generated by this year's regional superzonals in the Central and Ashanti regions.
I think that what has been missing is a proper structured organization that attracts the attention of the media. And so when you talk about Cape Coast and you talk about Ashanti region and Greater Accra, these are regions that have over the period produced a lot of talent and have also contributed significantly to the high school culture. The jama, the shouting, the screaming, and the records that have been broken. So I wasn't too surprised to see all the reports coming from the Central region, Ashanti region, and then Greater Accra. So it's impressive, and we can only encourage the regional federations to sustain the momentum that has been engineered or has been garnered or has been started, and let's see how the subsequent events will pan out.
Meanwhile, Ghana Athletics President Parl Business also reviewed that plans are far advanced to introduce a national inter-school championship in the coming month, providing an opportunity for schools from various regions to compete at a higher level.
To some athletics or some more athletics, and Abdul Rashid Samin, who represented Ghana in last year's Olympics, has had a very strong start to the indoor championships as he won the ICA, American Athletics Track and Field Championship, with 6.58 seconds. Just a few days ago, Abdul Rashid Saminu had set a national record of 6.58 seconds to qualify for the indoor championships, which will be happening later this month. And over the weekend, he continued his blistering performance, ushering him into the 2025-2026 athletics calendar. This was a competition, as I mentioned, he won with a time of 6.58 seconds.
Welcome back to the AM show. We will get into our big story shortly where we'll discuss the implications of that fire at NEDCO and, of course, minority boycotting the orientation. But for now, let's engage Reverend Edwin Ayeje. He's a pastor at True Vine Temple of the ICGC. And we're going to talk about the Dulos conference. Pastor, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
What is this Dulos conference all about?
Dulos conference is an international gathering of church leaders, that is pastors, all ministry stakeholders, people who are into ministry, church workers, church volunteers. And it's a gathering where there's going to be instruction to help pastors appreciate more what it means to be a servant of Jesus Christ.
Is that what doulos mean?
Yes, doulos actually means is a Greek word for bond servant.
Oh.
So as ministers, we are bond servants of Christ.
And so who are these speakers who will be speaking at the conference? Okay,
so we have Dr. Sam Chand, who is a leadership consultant and change strategist. We also have Pastor Sam Ademi, who is also a leadership consultant, and he's also the senior pastor of Daystar Christian Center in Nigeria. We also have Pastor Andre Olivier from the Rivers Church in South Africa. We have Pastor Ransford Obeng from CCC Kumasi, and the host of the conference, Pastor Mensa Otabel.
Oh, wow. I want you to help us understand how this conference can help boost our spiritual growth so that, it's enticing enough for us to attend.
All right. So I think that the host of this conference, Pastor Mensa Otabel, I appreciate the fact that the church needs to come back to servant leadership. And so the purpose of this conference is to help Christian leaders to understand and appreciate the fact that when it comes to serving Christ and his church, we approach it with a heart of service as a bond servant. And so it's supposed to help us to get back to pointing people to Christ and helping people to understand what it means to do ministry, especially in this age. When you look at the demographics of Christianity right now, you find that out of over 2 billion Christians in the world, about 700 million or more are found in Africa. And so for African Christians, having all this number and clout, what are we using it for? What are we offering Christianity in the world? Because we have the numbers. So what leadership are we providing? What influence are we providing to the Christian world? And that is what Dulos is going to address, is going to help us to appreciate.
So who can attend? I mean, is it only for ministers and leaders in the church?
Definitely not.
So,
definitely. So pastors, spouses, people who have founded churches, who want to know how to strategize and systemize their churches, is also for ministry volunteers, church workers, church staff, any missionaries, para-church organization leaders, anyone who has interest in ministry at all, and for the body of Christ in general.
So how do we get to participate? I'm sure there's a registration process.
Yes, so Dulos is actually a free conference, but registration is required, of course, to help for planning and all of that. So you just go on www.centralgospel/Dulos, and you can go ahead and register so that we can see
www.centralgospel/Dulos. And Dulos is spelled
Doulos, like I have in my shirt.
All right. Let's bring out the last details in terms of time, venue, and the duration. I'm sure it's starting tomorrow, Tuesday, 4th of March.
So Dulos is starting on the 4th of March, which is tomorrow, Tuesday, to the 6th of March, which is Thursday, which happens to be a holiday. So people have the chance to come in and hear something that will be transformative. So it's starting tomorrow at 9:45 a.m. for the morning session, and we have an afternoon session which also starts at 2:40 p.m. and closes at 4 p.m. and also an evening session which starts at 6 p.m. So it's a full day buffet. It's really loaded, and no one will ever regret coming for Dulos 2025.
I like to do this. I like to give our guests, especially with stuff like this, the opportunity to invite our audience directly. So in 30 seconds, invite our audience to join you from the 4th of March to the 6th of March.
All right. Thank you very much. Good morning to you all. I'd like to welcome you all and invite you to Dulos 2025 from Accra, all over Ghana, all over Africa, and the rest of the world. We have people coming from all over the world. So I want to encourage you, if you are here in Ghana, in Accra, you can't miss Dulos 2025. It's going to be impactful, it's going to be instructional, it's going to be transformative, and your life, your ministry, and your church will never be the same. So see you at Dulos 2025. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you, Reverend, so much. You said Dulos 2025. How many years have you done this over?
So this is actually the maiden event. So this is the first time we are launching this, but it's going to be an annual conference.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah.
I wish you the very best. And that's
Thank you very
Reverend
much.
Edwin Aye Ajay. He's a pastor at ICGC True Vine Temple, inviting you all to join him from the 4th of March to the 6th of March for Dulos Conference. Thank you. And we'll get into our big stories right after this break.
Welcome back on The Conversation. We get into our big stories. And first on the chopping board, Sweetie Abochi, we are looking at that fire that devastated one of the warehouses of NEDCO and many logistics equipment, transformers, insulators, and other equipment damaged. Let's get the details from Martina Bugri, our Northern Regional Correspondent who joins the conversation. Martina, what can you tell us about what happened and what the status quo is as we speak?
So we are told that yesterday around 2 p.m. They saw some smoke coming out of the warehouse. And so their alarms triggered and they called in the fire service. The fire service arrived in a very good time and they brought the fire under control. What we are being told is that several equipments were destroyed in the fire, transformers and insulators, we are told. But the good thing is that we are told that it will not affect power distribution in the area. We are told that it didn't affect any residential area in the city. That's one. And in the near future, they do not think that it will have any effect on power distribution in the area.
Well, while it may not affect that, how much damage was done to NEDCO's infrastructure? Do we know?
They say it's too early to tell yet, but obviously transformers are very expensive that we know, and we are told that up to about 20 got burnt. That's how much they had lost. And that's just for the transformers. There were other equipment that were also lost in the fire.
And speaking of which, actually, the cost factor. In the immediate term, they may not feel the impact, but this is equipment that NEDCO will have to fall on from time to time, which means if that time comes, they will not have these items available to them. What has NEDCO said on the back of that? What this will mean, the impact?
They said that they would go through what is banned, they will go through them later on, and then those that can be fixed, they would fix, but those that cannot be fixed, obviously, it is cost to NEDCO. So they are looking at actually fixing some of them they believe that can be fixed.
And the cost component, do we have any idea put together how much we're looking at that has been lost?
They would not tell us immediately. They said it's too early to predict any cost element. They will do that later on, and then they'll give us an update.
Are residents aiding in maybe rebuilding or helping out to, bring some clarity and normalcy back to that infrastructure?
So this warehouse is a gated one where the equipment, so people are actually not having access to enter. We had to wait for their public relations team to give us clearance to be able to enter into the facility. And so it is the fire service that had full access to the place. We were also told that the fire service was going to station a tender in the area until they are very certain that there won't be any havoc going forward.
Just a quick point. So as of now, we've still not been able to establish what exactly caused the fire?
Not yet. The fire service said it was too early to tell what triggered the fire, but they would also give us an update later if they establish something.
I see.
You mentioned tenders. I'm just curious because we've had reports of the fire service, struggling with fire tenders here and there. Did they get enough tenders to put out the fire on time? Was that an issue?
Yes, for this particular fire, we are told that tenders from the Tamale Metro and the hospital stations were dispatched to the area. And as at the time we were leaving the facility, there was still a fire tender there waiting that we are told will be there throughout until they are very certain that it's clear to leave.
Ben.
Martina Bugri, we're grateful for your time. Thank you for joining the conversation. As and when there's new scoop on this, we'll come back to you. And Martina is our Northern Regional Correspondent. But quickly, we continue from there because the minority in Parliament is boycotting an orientation program for members of Parliament, citing the cost component of the program, saying it is too much and that they will not be a part of it. But what's the reality? Speaker Bagman has said the decision to hold the event at the Volta Serene Hotel in the Volta region is the result of a comprehensive evaluation of several factors. By the minority says there is political bias. But is there? Joining the conversation, we have Samuel Bing, Executive Director of Parliamentary Network Africa, via Zoom, Vincent Akwesifwa, Member of Parliament for Otafo, and on phone, Roxanne Nelson Dafia-Mekbo, MP South Dai constituency. We start the conversations with them. Vincent, a very good morning to you. Thank you for joining the conversation, sir.
Good morning, bro. How are you?
I am well. I hope you are too.
Yeah, I'm okay.
All right. Let's start off with the position of the minority on this. Why exactly is the minority saying it will not partake in this orientation on the back of cost?
Well, let me say a very good morning to you and to your cherished viewers. I think that consistency is key in our body politic. And what was wrong yesterday should be wrong today. And what was right yesterday should also be right today.
Right.
It cannot be that a certain principle or reasons are advanced to a cause today and tomorrow when nothing has changed. Different reasons will be advanced. In 2022, when Parliament decided to go to Rock City, to have post-budget workshop over there, the Speaker of Parliament was very clear in a statement when he mentioned that because of the situations or the environment of the country at the time, it was not right for us to go and do so and spend that amount of money. The Ghana Catholic Bishops Conference came to support this. H. Prempe came to support this. A number of CSOs also came to support this. And at the time, the argument was that it was proper for us to have it at the presence of Parliament so that we could save the taxpayer some money. Orientation, which is supposed to be done by the Parliament, and members of Parliament are supposed to also partake in it. It's quite different when it comes to post-budget, in the sense that I am a second-timer. I've gone through this orientation before. And so I don't even see the need for me to travel all the way from Greater Accra region to the Volta region for another orientation session.
Vincent, quick interjection. You've been there, you've done that. There are the new standing orders which came into play just how long ago? And I have seen some of you members of Parliament come here and dispute because some of you maybe still have a few things from the old to the new. You're telling me that because you've been in the 8th Parliament, you don't need this orientation? Is that what you're saying?
The truth is that there has been an organization, if you like, a workshop for us, where members of Parliament were trained on the standing orders, except to say that first-timers were not part of it at the time. So there has already been a training session for us members of Parliament who were part of the 8th Parliament on the standing orders. Again, the new standing orders is not too much different from the old one. Just some additions and subtractions were made to it. And so if anybody says that we have to travel all the way to voter Syrian for a second timer, third timer, fourth timer, fifth timer to do that, I don't see the need. If the resources were available, considering the circumstances in the country, we had enough resources to do so, then of course, I don't think it will be so much of a problem. But where we can replace it with a training session at the presence of Parliament, like we did some years ago, I don't see why we should travel all the way to voter Syrian to go and do such.
Vincent, let me just sneak in this quick bit, because we have Roxanne Nelson Dapiamakpo as well. Sweetie Abachi will bring him in. But before we do that, just a quick point. The information I gather is that this wouldn't be the first time we're going to the Volta Serene Hotel. In fact, for this same kind of exercise, in the erstwhile administration, we had been there before. Why the difference now? Simply because the last time at Rock City, there were complaints about that situation? Because your administration
I agree with you that
there as well.
it's not the first time. I agree with you that it's not the first time. In fact, during my first term in office, that is, I think, 2021, we went to voter Syrian. It was in 2022 that argument was given by the Speaker of Parliament, supported heavily by the then minority, now majority in Parliament. The argument was because we had limited resources to do so. So I am asking, what changed? Do we now have enough resources to do these things? And so, yes, we've gone to voter Syrian before. At the time, there was some amount of unanimity from both aisles of the House that we could do so at voter Syrian. But in 2022, we were told that it is not possible. It was not right for us to do so. So I just want to know from the Speaker of Parliament what has changed. Now, do we have enough money? Do we have a lot of money, especially considering the fact that within about 6 or 8 weeks, the government has already internally borrowed about 67 billion Ghana cedis. Do we have money or we don't have money? If we have money, they should let us know, because the argument those times was that we did not have money. I don't think that today we have money. But if they think that we have money, they should let us know that we have money to be able to do so.
Well, thank you. Let me bring in Mr. Dapiamakpo into the conversation at this point. Sir, thank you for joining the conversation. And how much money is going into this orientation? Looks like the argument all comes down to the cost involved. Can you tell us, an estimate of how much you're spending on this orientation?
Thank you very much.
Right.
Yes, thank you very much. Good morning to. I believe you're on the radio.
No, this is Joy News AM Show TV. And can you speak up for us?
Okay. So I'm in some small meeting, so I'm trying to excuse myself. Good morning to our viewers. First of all, Vincent has put out. The Honorable Vincent Asifwa has put out some inaccuracies, and it's important that I correct them. One, it is not the Speaker that has taken us to who. The orientation for members of Parliament happens every year that Parliament is inaugurated. So it is the duty of the clerk to Parliament, the parliamentary service, to do that for members of Parliament. The search for a venue for such a program is conducted by the clerk to Parliament, the deputy clerk. There are parliamentary service staffers whose duty it is to procure such services. In doing so, they are guided by the Public Procurement Act. They look for quotations and they select the best. So this propaganda about the Speaker must stop. He's in second term in Parliament. He ought to know better. Two, this is not the first time the Parliament of the Republic of Ghana is conducting business at Volta Serene. Indeed, I am in my 9th year in Parliament. The Parliament of Ghana, in the 9 years I've been in Parliament, has been to Volta Serene at least over 7 times. In all this, I have participated. 7 times. 7. Not 1. 7. The Parliament of Ghana has been to Kofodia several times. Even if committees, we go to Kofodia. When we go to Kofodia, there are 1 or 2 venues that have become like the usual venues. So this sudden penchant to say that we don't have money to go to Volta Serene is a total fabrication.
Well, Mr. Demoko,
hold on, please, hold on. Under the presidency of Nana Akufo-Addo, the Parliament led by the Honorable Osei Mensah Boshu has been to Volta Serene over 6 times. We should check the record. Even under Speaker Michael Kwei, we have been to Volta Serene. So what is this thing about where Volta Serene is expensive? It's a 5-star, it's a 6-star. They are putting all sorts of star rated, fabricating it to give Parliament a good look. Now, the other matter that I think I should correct is that he says that the difference between the old standing orders and the new standing orders is not much. Please, I'm pleading with him. You should never say this anywhere. Because the evidence speaks for itself. In any case, Parliament does orientation periodically. He missed a lot for not attending this seminar.
Mr. Demoko, I'm not sure if we still have you on, if it's a network issue, but I was hoping you can give us an estimate of how much is going into this so that we can also understand the arguments the minority is making. And
I think as the media have pointed you where to go. Even if you ask the speaker will not be able to tell you. It is the clerk of Parliament. So if you want the financial implications for coming to Volta Serene, speak to the clerk to Parliament. The clerk can speak to it.
But a quick interjection, Roxanne. So from what you've said, it would then imply, and correct me if I'm wrong, that between the last time you went to Volta Serene and now, there wouldn't be a substantial difference in costs. Is that what you are thinking?
At all. I am saying that Parliament invited quotations, and Parliament will take the best quoted price. And anybody, the business person who has a continued business relationship with state institutions, they do what they call rebated rates. They give you rates that they think they can repeat. You can always come back to them. They will not give you a going rate. Anybody who has done that for business knows this.
All right. So
I think that the quotation that Volta Serene gives to Parliament is very competitive.
Okay, so it would stand to reason, business-wise, that for repeat customers, you would want to give them a certain rate because you are getting a lot from them. But on the other hand, listening to the MPP's argument as well, back then, Rock City and a few things that came up, we decided, no, let's be in Parliament and do it. The circumstances of our country have not changed substantially. Could we have had a less expensive option? Or could we maybe have done it within the precincts of Parliament and thus save the Ghanaian taxpayer quite a bit of money? Is that not possible?
The orientation that was done in Parliament was for only first-timers. And Speaker said they needed that to be able to even stay the course for the first 2 months of Parliament. So it was not done for the entirety of the 275 members. It was done for only fresh men and fresh women. That number, Parliament has enough space to accommodate that. That's the number.
Right, and
so it was organized at the GF Annan Auditorium, where a lot other seminars take place.
Mr. Developer.
Now, the final thing I want to say is that this issue of the orientation is an orientation that is on Parliament's calendar every session, and the venue varies, and it varies based purely on the commercial rate that is given to Parliament. Now, he's not in leadership. The complaint of his leaders as of Thursday was that both leaders, me, I'm the majority chief whip, but the complaint was that we were not consulted in respect of preparing the program for the retreat. That was the complaint of their leadership. And I said that at least the clerk and his officers also have, done some consultation with leadership of Parliament in respect of as to who, for instance, will be facilitators and all that. Those were their complaints. It was nothing about money.
Referencing the President's State of the Nation's address, he mentioned that the economy is in crisis. I guess the question on everyone's mind is, moving to Volta Serene Hotel, is that financially prudent for a country where we're trying to reset the economy and we have over 700 million in debts and so on and so forth? Is this a financially prudent move for Parliament right now?
The country is broke, so Parliament cannot work. So Parliament cannot work, the judiciary cannot work, the executive cannot work. Was this the argument that we had when TVDD was poisoned on us? This is Parliament conduct its normal business. What are not usual for Parliament too. So unless that is that every Parliament paid, but parliamentarians cannot be paid. They are waiting at the end of the month. Then I would say that then there's no need to even conduct of the in-service training for parliamentarians and parliamentary service staff.
Roxanne, right before we go to Samuel Beng, and you've explained quite a bit, but just a final point. I'm curious, if you go ahead, the minority says it will not partake in it. You've mentioned that in some previous instances, you've had maybe some people not able to participate. Maybe it's just for first-timers. If they insist on not participating and the rest of you in the majority go, what it would mean is that later on, you probably would have to conduct this exercise again for those who did not attend at the cost of the taxpayer. Is it still prudent to do that?
Now, the argument he makes is that coming to Volta Serene was at a certain economic burden for us, which was not necessary. They are still participating. They are 8 members. They've done it before. In fact, in 2000, I believe 2023 or 2, during the post-budget seminar, they pushed for the budget seminar to be held rough. We disagreed with Volta Serene because the rates were more competitive. Rock came back to say they will offer it for free. We still decided that we go to Serene. They didn't join us at Serene. They went to Rock City to hold their post-budget seminar, and the minority, as we were there, we proceeded to Volta Serene to hold our post-budget seminar. So it is not something that they have not done before. The fact that they didn't join us in hold doesn't mean.
But was that financially prudent? Very quickly, was that financially prudent? Some going to Rock City, others going to Volta Serene.
According to the number hold on. You spend according to the number of rooms you take. That's the common sense thing. So
okay.
If you don't have 250.
It appears we've lost Roxanne Nelson Dapiamepo, maybe right on cue, but it's an interesting point he makes. Let me come to Vincent Ekoesefua. You have some reactions. Please make them a bit brief so I can also bring in Sami Obi.
It's very laughable listening to Dapiamepo. Very laughable because of the way he wants to defend this unfortunate approach taken by the Speaker of Parliament and the majority in Parliament. The argument that Dapiamepo is making today is that because the numbers is huge at the presence of Parliament, we cannot host the numbers over there. How did we host the numbers in 2022? How did we do that? On what basis is he now saying that the numbers are huge? The same numbers of Parliament, the same 275 people that they supported. And if you listen to the Speaker of Parliament very well at the time, it did not appear that this is someone who had no role to play in choosing a venue for orientation or post-budget workshop. It did not. If you listen to him very well, in fact, he made mention of the fact that it will be very betrayal. It will be a betrayal of the people of Ghana if he allows such an orientation or post-budget workshop to happen at Rock City because we are broke. This is what they said. Why are they now shifting the goalpost?
The question was asked, just because I put him to the sword, I have to put you to the sword as well. As an MP in his 9th year, so 2 terms in Parliament, and now he started another one. This is your 2nd term, so your 5th year in Parliament. He has been to Volta Serene, which means Ande Akufo-Addo, many times, 7 times. This is not the first time you're having interactions with them. How is it that fairly, all of a sudden, Volta Serene Hotel has become so expensive that the same Parliament that over 9 years has been patronizing that facility no longer can do so? Is it merely to say that once we say the economy is hard, things have come to a standstill, so Parliament can have no money to engage in such things? Is that what you're saying?
In 2022, when the Speaker of Parliament and the minority then and the majority now made mention of the fact that it was economically, or if you like, financially not prudent for us to do so. From 2022 till now, how many years? 3 years now. So in any case, if
in 2022, Vincent, in 2022, we were just on the cusp of coming out of COVID-19. We were getting into an IMF program. We had the DDEP that was already beginning to take shape, though at that time it hadn't started. All of these things were happening. At the time, don't you think there was more reason for us to be more efficient with our money? And I'm not saying that this is inefficiency, but at the time, you listen to even the groups that came out, Catholic Bishops' Conference and the rest. There was a lot more pressure at the time not to do some of these things. Was there not, to be fair?
So now, are you saying that, or are we now advancing the argument that we have a better situation than 2022? But our people never said so. Are we now saying that we have a better situation than 2022? So the point I'm trying to make is that even in 2022, if Dapiamepo is saying that he has been in Parliament for 9 years, if you subtract the 3 years from it, because we are in 2025 now, that would be 6 years, right? So the 6 years that he's been in Parliament...
5 years, because we just started 2025.
The 5 years that he's been in Parliament, it was good for us to do it at Volta Serene. But in 2022, it was no good. What has changed from that time till now? That's the point I'm trying to make.
All right. Just a quick one. Just a quick one.
His Excellency, the President himself in Parliament told us that our economy has been criminally managed. It means that we are broke.
Right. Just a quick one. Sweetie Abachi will take it over from there and also later bring in Samuel Obeng. But Dr. Ezekiel Obeng, he's a member of your MPP Communications Directorate. And today he joined us on the show. He said he proposed something interesting, that members of parliament walk. You don't drive. You walk from parliament and go to, I believe, Sweetie, was it City Campus he was mentioning? You go to City Campus or around that area, the precincts, and do it there. As a member of parliament, would you be willing to do that? You know, I see how you people like to use your cars, ACs and all that. Would you be willing to walk from parliament to that place and go?
No, why not? I am a young man. Sometimes I commute from parliament to my office at the ministry. I just use the AICC inside national security and I'm at my office. I don't necessarily have to drive. You understand? So I don't have a problem doing so because I still have some energy in me. I'm still strong to be able to do so. Well, there are some of us who may not be able to do so because of health reasons. And it is not because they don't want to do so or because they feel that it is right for them to use their cars. No, there are some of them who may not be able to do so. But for me and some young people in parliament, we will be able to commit.
So should we say that, I mean, the minority as a group, would you be willing to do this? Let's say the few that may have health situations would not do it. Would you, as a minority, would you take this up, especially as Dr. Obeng is a communicator? Would you take it up and say, look, we're going to take this up, we're going to walk to this place and propose that?
I honestly don't have a problem at all.
Okay, all right.
Well, you know, a boycott, like in this case, could delay critical parliamentary work like we're seeing. But critics also argue that a boycott weakens your influence as minority rather than strengthen it. How would you respond to concerns that this boycott is counterproductive?
Well, it depends on how you look at it. But when we have a political architecture where in parliament it seems that the majority will always have its way, the minority can only have its say. If you don't have the right opportunity to be able to vociferously make your point in parliament, you have to use other means for the Ghanaian people to also understand what is happening. And so on the floor of parliament, I think that we did not have enough opportunity to espouse whatever we wanted to say. And so it is proper for us to boycott for the Ghanaian people to know what we intend actually doing or what we seek to achieve. You remember last Friday after the business committee statement was made by the majority leader, an argument, or if you like, a proposal was made that this time they are going to now share the speaking in parliament based on ratio, proportional speaking. So 3:1 kind of, because of the numbers in parliament, something that has never happened before. So in such circumstances, if you don't have your way to be able to say the kind of things that you want to say, so that the Ghanaian people will understand the position of the minority, you have to adopt other means. So it depends on how you look at it. In this particular instance, I don't think that it is counterproductive.
Well, let's bring in Samuel Obeng now. He's Executive Director of Parliamentary Network Africa. Sir, thank you for joining the conversation. And feel free to reflect on some of the points in the arguments we're having so far. But I want to talk about the opposition protest strategy. I mean, I've been thinking about it. Is this a form of protest against government actions, or is this abandonment of duty? In your expert opinion, what does this look like?
Thank you, Sweetie, and Ben and all the other panelists on the call. Let me first start from, as you invited me to reflect on some of the points that had earlier been made. Then I come to the substantive question that you had put forward. For the past 12 years, I've been engaged with the Parliament of Ghana, either working with Parliamentary Network Africa or even when, together with my friend, the Honorable Vincent Assefuwa, we were offering service to nation when he was my National Service President, and I was also offering my service in the Parliament of Ghana. We've seen, even before then, the evolution of MP's orientation, how it started, what it had been like in the past, and what it has transformed into. People will recall that, from its early days of small sessions in Parliament to when civil society had some resources to support it, and Parliament was holding it in Gempa for a couple of years, to when MPs protested and said Gimpa was not bourgeois enough, to have members of parliament spend a week there for their MP's orientation, to when it started moving to other facilities. We've seen all of this happen over the years. And yes, it is true that whenever a new parliament is constituted, we have members of parliament expected to go through this orientation. So it's a very important activity on the parliamentary calendar. In fact, it is one of the things that we advocate for in all of the parliaments that we work in, as Parliamentary Network Africa. It has become one of the very important activities on every parliament's calendar to take members of parliament through orientation. And so for us, with this evolution, we've been excited to see that this process has moved away from one that was heavily civil society supported or, development partner supported, to one that Parliament itself now has its skin, in the game, and is taking, its own orientation and capacity development of its members of Parliament very serious. To the extent that now it is being coordinated by the Parliamentary Training Institute, which is, a department within the Parliament of Ghana, set up to look at matters relating to MPs, capacity building of members of staff, and what have you. But in doing this, it is important also that Parliament considers matters relating to cost, especially for an arm of government or an institution of state that has complained about budgetary allocation, about the resources that the budget makes provision to the Parliament of Ghana and how it affects even sometimes committees and their ability to do work. And so for Parliament to be able to make all of these assessments, to know where best they need to put their monies. So orientation is important, but it's an institution that has budget deficits or does not have all of the resources it needs to do the work. And so it must be very prudent in managing its resources. And that's where the parliamentary service comes in. And the Honorable Majority Chief Whip mentioned that these things are coordinated by the parliamentary service, the clerk, together with the service, accounts office, the various procurement people go through the processes and what have you. What is happening in recent times really puts the members of staff of the parliamentary service in a very difficult situation, because what we are seeing appears to me like a group of members of parliament or leaders of parliament who are more interested in where some of these activities go based on who manages, owns, runs these activities. And the optics are not good for the Parliament of Ghana. The optics are putting the staffers of Parliament who are doing some very diligent job on these matters under very, very tight situations. And if we do not take care, these things may crash on our head. Why? We've had an instance where, because both sides of the aisle did not agree on where to hold a particular orientation, MPs decided we are going to what is considered the MPP Hotel of Rock City. NDC MPs considered to go to what is considered as the NDC Hotel in Volta Serene and hold separate trainings. When, yes, the argument can be made that, well, it's about per head. So the individuals that go, the number of rooms that you take is what you actually get to pay for.
Yeah.
But the facilitators are not per head. You get two sets of facilitators to facilitate two different workshops, which could have been one. The parliamentary staffers that come in as support staff will have to play here and will also have to play here. Those are extra costs that could have been avoided. And so the optics are not good. And they should stop giving us the impression that there is something to probe into on whose facility gets used and why it gets used, and under what circumstances Parliament will be willing to use somebody's facility at the expense of another. Having said that, now let me go to the substantive bit on boycotts and whether it is an essential to effective or efficient tool for minority protest. There are many tools available to members of Parliament to express themselves and express grievances. Some of them are the kinds of tools that you employ when you are seated in Parliament. You ask questions, you debate, you make statements, you filibuster, and all of that. There are those also that you employ to show your absence. In all of it, I always say that parliamentary business is as much about the rules and orders of Parliament as it is about also your strategy. And if as a caucus, you choose a particular strategy, you must be willing and able to assess the implications of that strategy, short-term, medium-term, and long-term. If members of parliament in the minority caucus decides that they are not participating in an orientation workshop, where all members of parliament are supposed to participate and very essential things will be taught at that orientation workshop, then you ask yourself, would it be in the interest of leadership who probably have been to some of these orientations 3, 4, 5 times? Or what will be the implications on newer members of parliament who need this? Look, we've had workshops and training sessions and sessions with members of parliament at different levels, first timers, second timers, third timers at Parliamentary Network Africa. And at every point in time, you know that there is something new that needs to be learned. So I'm looking at what will be the implications on members of parliament within the caucus who refuse to attend this. Would it be that later on there will be another orientation for the minority members, or would parliament decide that it is done and that is it? And so they should go and bear their own crosses on how they get to cope within the presence of parliament. These decisions must be taken and must be taken with some of these future intentions in mind. But parliament must also be careful in not creating the impression that these procurement decisions are made on the back of who knows who, rather than proper procurement processes.
That question you just posed, I posed it to Roxanne Nelson Dapiamepo, and he also brought in the Rock City Volta Serene issue. Because of where you work, maybe you can influence some of those thoughts. But very quick question. We'll also bring in Dr. John Osai-Kwapong shortly. On the back of historical antecedents, Dapiamepo, for example, says this is his 9th year in Parliament. He's been to Volta Serene 7 times, spanning different administrations. Is there a case for Volta Serene Hotel? And if not, what are the options? Or are there better options? Is there an alternative that maybe we could look at? Where do you stand on that, on the back of the historical antecedents?
Ben, on the back of historical antecedents, for the 12 or so years that I have been involved with Parliament of Ghana, I can name about 5 hotels in this country which are considered our parliament's place of engagement. You know, many times I have had reason to participate in parliamentary engagement and activities at Rock City, at Volta Serene, at Capital View in Koforidua, at AH Hotel in Accra, at Alisa in Accra. You know, you would receive an invitation from Parliament, and these are some of the very obvious choices that you would find. Some would say that for every institution, you have your list of suppliers. You know, the procurement department has a list of suppliers, which indicates a group of institutions that you work with repeatedly.
So if it goes to any of these within the number you've mentioned, there's no surprise?
Well, I would not be surprised at all. And of course, the same way that I will not be surprised if Parliament creatively tries to do some of these things using some of its nicer facilities that it has in Parliament, which helps to save cost. And so there is that cost-benefit analysis, which I believe that for an institution that always complains about budget constraints, these must occupy the minds of, you know, parliamentary service staff, procurement officers, decision makers in Parliament.
All right. Let's bring in Dr. John Osai-Kwapong very briefly. What is your appreciation of this entire situation, especially from the governance perspective and cost saving? Quick thoughts?
Well, good morning, Benjamin. So for me, it's, I keep wondering what to expect from the 9th Parliament. I keep wondering whether there is still a spillover effect from the way that things went in the 8th Parliament. I used to think that the 8th Parliament was a reflection of how closely divided Parliament was. But you're still seeing signs of that deep differences between the majority and the minority on some of these matters. And this is even before other substantive matters comes before the House, like the budget. And so from a governance perspective, I just fear that it is going to be a continuation of, the majority having the numbers and therefore can choose not to, engage the minority, which for me, I don't think it would be helpful because no matter what, you still need the input of the minority in government business. But at the same time, I also don't think that some of these tactics, whatever is motivating the minority to engage in some of these tactics, does not also become a political strategy to be disruptive to the governance process. So some way, somehow, the leadership of the two caucuses, I believe, would really have to sit down and have an honest conversation and then bring their individual caucuses along, because we can't, at least for me, in my opinion, we can't afford this to drag through the entire life of the 9th Parliament, right? That even if we are disagreeing on an important event as the orientation of MPs and where to have it, right, can cause this kind of a rift. Then you can only imagine when even other more substantive issues are brought before the House.
Doc, I know we have to go, but I'm curious to just ask you, we've seen a number of walking outs, boycotting from the minority side. Does that give us a sense that the majority is unwilling to engage? I know our democracy thrives on dialogue and engagement, but we are seeing a lot of boycotting and walking out. What does that tell you?
Well, it goes back to my point of what the political strategy is for the minority and how accommodating the majority also would feel they have to be. I mean, the reality is that I'm sure in the minds of the majority, they have no political incentive, right, to be overly accommodating of the minority because they have the numbers, right? But you also cannot say that because you have the numbers, you can, if there are really legitimate concerns being expressed by the minority,
right,
you can ignore that. But at the same time, too, I don't think the minority should overplay its hands, right? Knowing that they don't have the numbers. It's a give and take to get us to a place where we can have more cooperation, less acrimony, to get the business of the House done.
Ben.
Well, thank you so much, Doc, for joining the conversation. And don't go away, stay with us, because we're also hosting you on our very next conversation. But those who joined us for this conversation, Dr. John Osai Kwapong, he's a CDT fellow, you just heard him. Roxanne Nelson Dafeamekwo, MP South Dine. We also had the Otafo legislator, Vincent Eko Asifwa, and Samuel Bing of Parliamentary Network Africa. He's the executive director. They joined us for this conversation. Do stay, there's a lot more coming your way. We'll be right back.
What kind of diplomacy, JD, you are speaking about? What do you mean?
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come to the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media. Right now, you guys are going around and forcing conscripts to the front lines because you have manpower problems. You should be thanking the president for trying to bring an end to this conflict.
Have you ever been to Ukraine? Did you say what problems we have?
I have been to. I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. President. Do you disagree that you've had problems bringing people into your military? And do you think that it's respectful to come to the Oval Office of the United States of America and attack the administration that is trying to prevent the destruction of your country?
A lot of questions. Let's start from the beginning.
Sure.
First of all, during the war, everybody has problems. Even you, but you have nice ocean and don't feel now, but you will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless. God bless. You will not have war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that.
That's exactly what you're doing.
You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel. We're going to feel very good.
You will feel influence.
We're going to feel very good and very strong.
You will feel influence.
You're right now not in a very good position. You've allowed yourself to be in a very bad position, and he happens to be right about it.
From the very beginning of the war.
You're not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having
Not playing cards.
Right now, you don't.
You're
playing
cards.
cards. You're
I'm
playing
very
cards.
serious.
You're gambling
I'm
with the lives of
anymore.
millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country. That's back to you. Far more than a lot of people said they should have.
Have you said thank you once? This
A lot
entire
of
meeting?
times.
No, in this
Even
entire meeting,
today.
have you said thank
Even
you?
today.
You went to Pennsylvania and campaigned for the opposition in October. Offer some words of appreciation for the United States of America and the president who's trying to save your country.
Please, you think that if you will speak very loudly about the war, you
He's
can...
not speaking loudly. He's not speaking loudly. Your country's in big trouble.
Can I
Wait a
answer?
minute. No,
Can
you've
I
done a lot
answer?
of talking. Your country is in big trouble.
I know.
You're not
I
winning.
know.
You're not winning this. You have a damn good chance of
We
coming
are
out
staying,
okay because of
Mr.
us.
President, we are staying in our country, staying strong from the very beginning of the war. We've been alone, and we are thankful. I said thanks
You haven't
in
been
this
allowed.
cabinet.
You
and
haven't
not
been
only
allowed.
in this
We
cabinet.
gave you, through
I
this
said
stupid president, $350 billion.
You voted
we gave
for
you
your
military
president.
equipment.
You
and you
voted
men
for
are
your
brave,
president.
but they had to use our military.
What about
If you didn't have
You
our
invited
military
me.
equipment,
You invited
if
me
you
to
didn't
speak.
have our military equipment, this war would have been over in 2 weeks.
In 3 days, I heard it from Putin. In 3 days. This is something
Maybe
new.
less.
In 2 weeks, of course, yes.
It's going to be a very hard thing to do business like this. I tell you.
Just say thank you.
I said a lot of times to American people.
Accept that there are disagreements, and let's go litigate those disagreements rather than trying to fight it out in the American media when you're wrong. We know that you're wrong.
But you see, I think it's good for the American people to see what's going on.
I understand, sir.
I think it's
I
very
understand.
important. That's why I kept this going so long. You have to be thankful. You don't have the
I'm
cards.
thankful.
You're buried there. Your people are dying.
tell you
You're
again,
running
I
low
know.
on soldiers.
Don't-
Listen,
don't please,
you're running
Mr.
low
President.
on soldiers. It would be a damn good thing. And then you
So we ask, what's America's interest in securing an end to the war in Ukraine? And what are the implications of a protracted Russian-Ukrainian war for Africa and America's geopolitical standing? Joining us, Nana Yamriku, he's an international relations analyst. And we also have Dr. Theo Echampong joining. Dr. John Osai-Kwapong, I beg your pardon. He's a CDD fellow. Now, it's very interesting. I will start with you, Dr. Osai-Kwapong, on this matter. We know you are wrong. J.D. Vance says so. It was more like 2-on-1, and I've read the literature on this. I've been scratching my head and wondering what exactly was happening. Some said it was bullying, that it was very antagonistic. But what did you see, Dr. John Osai-Kwapong, in this interaction? Where did it place the matters we are talking about, Ukraine, Russia, and the U.S.?
You know, I was quite surprised, right, on the one hand, at the turn of events, because normally with these diplomatic engagements, especially over difficult issues like war and peace and how, you support a country or not, I thought that a lot of the conversations, the difficult part of the interaction and the conversations would have been had behind closed doors, privately. You hash it all out. And then when you're done, you come publicly to engage the media, knowing that all major differences have been trashed out. You take the questions, you present, basically what has been agreed upon and moving forward. So I was surprised all of this testy exchange took place in the full glare, of the public. But you also, in that interaction, you see the US's philosophy when it comes to foreign policy, right? Which is, a dominant force, a dominant player who is providing you all of this support. And so to hear the vice president even ask, have you ever said thank you? Is this idea that when we take money or when we provide you with resources to support you, there's a certain level of gratitude that is expected. And then when you look at the Ukrainian president, it feels as though in that interaction, his calculus is also, yes, I'm grateful, but that's not also the reason why I would sit here for you to quote unquote, either like bully me.
In fact, he points to the fact
humiliate
that
me.
you, America, your interest is at stake in what happens here. And that in the future, if some things are not done, there could be consequences. And then Trump tells him, you are not the one to determine what the consequences will be.
Exactly. So all of that dynamics were at play. Whose interest should take precedence over the others, who is in a better position to make certain assertions and claims or not. And that for me is what created this testy, messy exchange. But like I said, I was hoping that these difficult things would have been said behind closed doors before you come before the cameras to have the easier part of the conversation.
Some people say that it wasn't necessarily planned for Zelensky to be a part of this, and that also contributed to how frosty everything the session was.
Well, normally when these leaders are invited, there's still an opportunity given to them to engage with the U.S. president or whoever is representing the administration that they in a media encounter. Anytime there is a visit, definitely there's a media part or there's a press engagement after that. So I don't think it wasn't meant for him to be part of this media engagement. I mean, if he wasn't originally, then I'm also curious as to the last, what occasioned the administration to say, okay, we'll bring him and make him part of this engagement.
Right. So, Nanayo, bringing you into the conversation, I've seen you sit, smile, scratch your head. I don't know whether you were as surprised as some of us were, and the mere Oval Office, and this is happening, and it's more like, But then there's also the issue of whether in this meeting, the purpose of the U.S. was really served. Some say that if Trump and J.D. Vance spoke Ukrainian, maybe Zelensky would have been able to defend himself better. But here he was trying to speak English with 2-on-1. But what did you make of it initially?
It's a very interesting development. I think it was a special historic moment.
Historic, right?
Yes.
Intensity.
Intensity. And in my interest in international politics, probably the most dramatic one I've witnessed was when Hugo Chavez went to UN and after and the president, the devil has been here. But this one had a lot of interest across the globe. And I think that, like Trump himself said, it was good for television. And I think that Volodymyr Zelensky should have known, that there was a shift or change in the political grounds on which he stood. And he should have understood the political temperature in the room. These Republicans and most likely Trump, they have a long memory. They are not forgiving him for campaigning for Kamala Harris during the elections. It might seem as trivial as it is, but they still have that in their mind.
So this was an ambush and this was payback.
Exactly, to the extent that J.D. Trump brought such a domestic trivial issue to such a platform. He is the one that rehearsed that particular statement. So I think that Volodymyr Zelensky should have understood he should have de-escalated the environment by regulating the diplomatic temperature. Because before him, he had seen President Emmanuel Macron, Prime Minister Starmer come into the Oval Office, and how through platitude and flattery they were able to get a way around Trump. It's diplomacy.
But let's be fair.
And I understand him. He's a leader.
When Keir Starmer came and Emmanuel Macron of France came through, while yes, it was a bit Trump will be Trump, this was antagonistic right from the start.
Yes.
And it had always been one-on-one. This was Trump and J.D. Vance ganging up, and I use those words cautiously, on Zelensky, someone who is not even fluent in English. And they were bombarding him. And on such a platform at the Oval Office, pardon me, I've never seen something like this before. Never.
And that is why I say that I believe that it was pre-planned. This is a
premeditated.
Exactly, premeditated, event. To the extent that, like Doc said, these things are done behind closed doors. And then you take some pictures, and after the major issues have been discussed. And to the fact that they allowed him to walk into this in the glaring view of the public, live television, I understand that this is the situation. But I think that, look, if he has spoken in his language, because in the aftermath of this event, when he had been to other platforms recently, when he was in Europe, you know, he spoke in his dialect, and then it was translated into English. Because there are some words that he might have used that he thought was, you know, normal words, but it miscommunicated something else too. You know, when he said you can speak loudly of the situation, immediately Trump came inside and said he is not being loud. But
it's true.
Maybe he was saying it in a different context. This is somebody who learned English just when the war, you know, started and started speaking. So I think that going forward, these are some of the issues that we can begin to look at. But it was a very special, you know, historic moment. I think it was very needless, and it doesn't really speak all of America's, you know, diplomacy across the globe. I mean, you saw people there that held their hands, you know, their head in their hands.
Right.
You know.
And I'll quote Trump shortly. In fact, a top EU diplomat says, "Free world needs new leader after this clash." That was one of them saying that the free world needs a new leader. But just quoting Trump, he says, "I have determined that President Zelensky is not ready for peace. He disrespected the United States of America and its cherished Oval Office. He can come back when he is ready for peace." Dr. Osakwapong, is that the feeling you got when you listened to Zelensky?
Could you please repeat that?
So Trump says, he posted after this, and it's a lengthier post, but part of it says, "I have determined that President Zelensky is not ready for peace. He disrespected the United States of America in its cherished Oval Office. He can come back when he is ready for peace." Fair?
I don't agree that he's not ready for peace. I mean, for what his country has gone through, I'm sure he would love to have peace. He would love to bring this thing to an end. That is my reading. As to the fact that he disrespected the Oval Office, again, you have to also put that within the context of how the US feels about the sacred nature of the Oval Office. In fact, if you've watched the movie The American President, there's a line in there that talks about the Oval Office being the one place that presents, it was specially designed to sort of humble people who come in there to try and negotiate for something with their life. So there's that sanctity that is always attached to the Oval Office. And so when you see this kind of exchange, I can see why President Donald Trump would walk away thinking, who comes to the Oval Office to do this? Because that expectation is not there that you should be able to walk into the Oval Office and engage the President of the United States that way. President Zelensky probably did not have, and I mean this respectfully, probably did not have a full appreciation of that kind of sanctity that is attached to the Oval Office, which on that score, I normally would not give President Donald Trump props for anything. But I think on that score, I can see why the administration will feel very disrespected that you don't quote unquote do this in the White House.
But a quick point, Dr. Osakwapong, I've watched a lot of interactions all the way from the time of senior George Bush, not even when, you know, the point referenced by Nanaya Mweku, when at the UN, I believe it was the General Assembly, and the Venezuelan leader spoke, and Bush Jr. had just spoken, and he said to him, you know, "I can smell the sulfur, the devil was just here." Not even there was there a response. So sanctity of the Oval Office, yes, but diplomacy speaks in a certain direction. This has never been seen, regardless of such sanctity.
Right. I mean, you're correct. This has never been seen, especially again in the Oval Office, which is why I keep also going back to the point of I found it quite surprising that the difficult conversations were not had before, you know, this public engagement. I mean, I think back to, you recall when President Clinton was able to bring the late Arafat and the late Yitzhak Rabin to Camp David, right? I'm sure the conversations they had before that, quote unquote, nice diplomatic press conference was not an easy conversation. But by the time they both addressed the media in 2 questions, it was a nice, smooth exchange of answering questions and things like that. So for me, I also hope this is a lesson to the administration, right? That certain diplomatic issues, you don't engage in it this way.
Right. Nanayo, Ukraine is suffering. It's getting battered. And you can also look at the Russian end and what the consequences have been for their economy. But is Ukraine a mere pawn in all of this? And why do I ask? Ukraine wants protection from both the EU and the US. And later I'll get to the numbers in terms of how much has been spent and all of that. Russia has taken part of Ukraine's land and what they see to be part of the greater Russia as it was back then. And they are not ceding. The US wants Ukrainian minerals, rare earth and other minerals. Where does this leave Ukraine? Is it a lose-lose situation for Ukraine?
That's a good question. There are critics, there are intellectual stalwarts within America's, academia, John Mearsheimer, Jeffrey Sachs, who have, given a chronology of how things got to where they are in the first place. And personally, I think that Volodymyr Zelensky or Ukraine could have been more strategic with their demands, because I know they have full sovereignty until now. They have, they are independent nation, and so they decide where they want to be. But there is also the geopolitics of the day, and Russia considers Ukraine and some of these eastern parts as sphere of influence. Look, the United States almost had, a Cuban Missile Crisis, almost engaged with Russia.
Indeed.
Exactly. Over, Russia's influence in that area, Cuba, what you call the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Yeah.
There's no way the United States will allow any major power to use its backyard.
Which brings them to mind, why did they also go the way they did in some of what now led to Putin also saying, this can't be tolerated.
Exactly. And even Ukraine is aware, at the end of the Cold War, right, you had the US Secretary of State, James Baker. He was not the only person. You had the then Chancellor of Germany, Chancellor Kohl, and then you have the NATO Secretary Defense General, right? I think Manfred Wörner, who said that they were not going to move an inch into the east. And this has sunk well into the mindset of Russia. It has lost most of its, state at the end of the Cold War. And if you take Ukraine out, of the picture, there are 4 countries that directly have access to Russia: Poland, Slovakia, Hungary. These are countries that Ukraine is the only country standing in between them. So once Ukraine is out of the zone, what it means is that in the mindset of Russia, their sphere of influence is vulnerable, their security architecture and arrangement is also vulnerable. So Ukraine should have understood how dire or critical the situation is before they, in my opinion, they allow themselves to be pawns. Because at the end of the day, it is not Western European countries that are suffering from, in terms of numbers, the people that are dying, the real impact. So if there is a president who wants to bring an amicable solution to it, look, at the end of the day, there will be collateral damages, there will be losses. That is what war does. But if you are able to accept some of these, because look, there is no way Crimea or the Donbass region, Luhansk and Donetsk, are going to be in the hands of the Ukraine. That is something that the Russians will never accept. And that is what Ukraine is also not ready to agree to. So it's a then-end situation. I mean, as far as it stands now, getting to that point is very difficult. And that is why Donald Trump is saying that, look, let's understand this mineral agreement. Because once we sign the mineral agreement, that means that U.S. is economically invested in Ukraine. And what it means is that it keeps the Russians at bay. But, and I understand Volodymyr Zelensky, this is not the first time there would have been an agreement. There was the Minsk agreement in 2015. Before that, there was the Budapest Memorandum in 1990. Russia has violated all these agreements. So what shows that if you sign this mineral agreement and my security and my sovereignty are not guaranteed, what shows that Russia will uphold its side of the argument?
A quick follow-up for you. There's the ethical component of saying, oh, we're giving you support, and so give us your minerals in return. Already, the image that has been created is that the US, I mean, like we say, there's no free lunch. We don't do anything for free, and so if we give you something, there must be a catch. Remember, that same talk has been in Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, that always when there's an interest of oil or something, then they may come in. I'm talking of the global image, right? So ethically, there's a question. Then you also look at it from the standpoint that there is Ukrainian land, in quote, that is now under Russia. And Russia is willing to give out some of the mineral resources there, which technically someone would say is not their land.
Right.
Do you get it? When you look at it from that perspective, how can one be fair to Ukraine on this point? Because then you've lost some of your land, which Russia is giving to the Americans maybe for mineral resources. So it's not their land, but they are giving it away as though it were. Then you are also expected to make similar commitments. If you look at the quid pro quo, does it work for Ukraine?
It's a lot to unpack. So in the first instance, we need to understand Donald Trump. And for the next 4 years, things will be done his way. And so we need to understand how he likes things to be done. And I've said always he's a transactional pragmatist. There is no way he's going to give you something without getting something in return. Otherwise, it is very unethical for you to beat somebody when they are down. And that is what it looks like is happening to Ukraine. You know, that you are trying to get minerals from them at a very critical time when they need your help, because you know your help is indispensable to their survival. And so it is very unethical. But then again, this is somebody who has said America has committed $350 billion without, and fact check, that is not
that is not the case, because it's around 115 billion.
Yes.
Where Europe has contributed north of 130 billion.
Yes.
But if you look at the reality, Europe has made a lot of commitments that it has not actually met.
Exactly. The non-humanitarian aspect is where Europe comes in. America does 3 things in defense. Air defense systems, air anti-missile defense system, the air power. And then they provide the intelligence, which is very crucial for the survival of the Ukrainians. And interestingly, the intelligence system is provided by Starlink, which is owned by Elon Musk. So they provide the firepower, the air defense missile system, and then the intelligence. The Europeans are likely providing what you call the non-humanitarian aspect of the defense system. So America is indispensable, regardless of how Europe comes around, like what Starmer and other European countries are doing now. Can you count the number of times in Starmer's speech he mentioned how indispensable the Americans are? So you need the Americans in the next 4-6 years, in order to make sure this deal comes to the table. So what they are doing is that once Europe has agreed to a plan, like what Starmer said, then they will get back to the Americans as to what the plan is, and then they move forward. But I think Volodymyr Zelensky has sounded the word that he's ready to go back to the negotiation table. Right. You would have imagined that if, in quote, he had been embarrassed, with his chest up high, he probably wouldn't come to the Americans. But immediately he made a reverse, because he knows that without the Americans, exactly. Right. According to what I'm hearing, if they don't get the American support, they are going to, suffer just getting to the summer. It's a very precarious, moment for them. So I think that this situation could have been salvaged. What happened in the Oval Office could have been, once again, I think that it was a planned attack, it was an ambush. But look, it was Winston Churchill, right? And I quote him. He said that, and when he was dealing with Roosevelt, he said that no lover has known the whims of their mistress than he did Franklin Roosevelt. So what it means that when you are dealing with world leaders, you need to understand how they are, so you can get what you want from them, wherever you meet them.
Let me bring in Dr. John Osai-Kwapong. Some have suggested that America stands to lose about over 100 billion, what they've spent so far in Ukraine, if Ukraine falls. I don't know what picture you see from there, but then there's also the domino effect, because there's Finland, there's Denmark, there's Poland. There are some of these other areas, some of them though aligned to NATO. What do you think the picture could be in 2025, looking at the posturing of the White House, or should I say the presidency, versus Ukraine and their precarious situation?
Already, as you even read the statement from President Donald Trump, which is, look, come back when you're ready for peace. I believe I read somewhere that the State Department, some U.S. support that was going to Ukraine, the State Department is indicating that it's going to put a hold on that. But I've also read that President Zelensky has indicated that, look, I'm not backing out of the minerals deal. I'm more than happy to sign that agreement. At the end of the day, each of these players would have to think about their own strategic interest, do a cost-benefit analysis, and ask themselves, if I disengage, is what I lose bigger than what I gain, or the other way around? And I think that would inform what each of the players do. With President Donald Trump, if you think back to the statement he made where he says to Zelensky, at this point, something to the effect of, you have no bargaining power, you are not at an advantage position. I'm sure the administration's calculus is that we have the upper hand, we are the stronger player in here, and Ukraine stands to lose more than we do if things fall apart. If they go into further conversations and negotiations with that mindset, and if what President Zelensky showed in the Oval Office would also continue to be his posture, then we can expect a protracted, conversations trying to get this resolved.
Okay.
But I'm hoping that, for example, European leaders would also step in to smoothing out some of these things, because ultimately, I'm not sure it is in.
Hello? Okay, let me come into the studio. We lost you briefly. Please go ahead.
Yes, so I was saying that I'm just hoping that at some point, though, European leaders would also step in to smoothing some of the tensions that have come up, because it is also in their best interest to not have a protracted Russia-Ukraine dispute,
right?
And the United States that is also extremely unhappy with one of the actors because they feel disrespected.
I'll come back to you for some 20 seconds of a final words, but before we get into that, cards came into the picture because Trump said that he had no cards to play, Zelensky, and Zelensky also mentioned that this was not a game of cards. It was like, I mean, for someone who doesn't speak English too well, I think he was pretty... There's also the end of Kemi Badenoch, the conservative leader, saying that Zelensky is a hero. SNP in Scotland, there's some convention that when you're a one-term, when you come in your first term to the UK, and all that, you don't come if you have a second term. There's some arrangement. Keir Starmer, on behalf of the King, is inviting Trump over. People are against that, and the SNP leaders are saying, we don't want him in Scotland. How do you unpack these issues very, very briefly?
Well, I think that UK's greatest ally, probably outside of Europe, has always been traditionally the United States. And it's the political atmosphere in the UK right now. People are not really happy with the way things went down in the Oval Office. Zelensky is never the aggressor. It's rather Vladimir Putin. So when you have a leader of the free world comes across as rather chastising, the victim rather than the villain, it is not so much, the political tradition within the United Kingdom. But I think that once again, UK also understand the geopolitics of the day, and they know that it is very difficult to go the long haul without the Americans.
Right.
And so if you've seen what has been happening, Steinmeier is not, I don't envy his position at this particular moment, because he has to navigate carefully. He's working on a very thin line between how to please the American president and at the same time ensure that his country and then the European security architecture is also solid. And so he has to play, and right now I don't see...
In fact, I don't know whether it was Kemi or someone, he's been told to get off his knees when it comes to the US.
Right.
Right thing.
But that is diplomacy. Sometimes this is the extent you have to go to ensure that you get what you want. And at this moment, I don't see any leader playing that role better than the Prime Minister of UK. So I think that this extension of invitation to Donald Trump is good for the whole security and defense architecture of Europe and the United States as well. And I think that unless something happens dramatically, and Trump is an unpredictable figure, anything can happen. But if that doesn't happen, I think it's a good move, to bring him to the side. All right.
And over in the US, there have been pro-Ukraine demonstrations on the back of that Oval Office meeting. But what would be your final words, Dr. Osai-Kwapo?
Well, I'm just hoping that sooner rather than later, a way will be found out of this impasse. because everybody has strategic interests at stake. Whatever you believe it is or it's not, you want to get these things resolved. I also hope that this would be a lesson for the administration not to avoid certain kinds of public diplomacy, because you just never know when you would have another President Zelensky in the Oval Office, and you don't want this kind of showdown.
All right. Thank you very much for joining the conversation, gentlemen. Dr. John Osai Kwapong is a CDD fellow. He also focuses on governance-related matters. We're grateful for your time. Nana Yabeko is an international relations analyst, and he also joined the conversation. Thank you, Nana.
Thank you.
You always are a breath of fresh air when it comes to these matters. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me, as always.
Well, that's how we wrap up this conversation. Thank you for watching. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
TV Fufu party, which I have in studio with me Charles Na, event coordinator, and Oswin J, his acting relationship manager, to tell us more. Gentlemen, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Where did all this start from, Charles?
I started a few years ago when we decided to innovate and come up with something that would engage the whole of Ghana. And we decided that Fufu was a popular meal that people gravitate towards. So whilst celebrating Ghana's independence, it was a good time to celebrate the foods that people enjoy as well. So Fufu party came about, and it's been a number of years now.
How many years?
I think about 5 or 6.
Yeah,
How's the reception been?
Massive, massive. I must say massive. Yeah, it's a holiday, and all road leads to Vanova Street, Kokumlimli, on the 6th of March. 6 o'clock. We are going
6 o'clock a.m.
6 o'clock a.m. We are going to start with a brass band procession. It's going to be led by our own popular television host, Sister Sandy, in entertainment. Abna Pokuahwinye is also going to lead. One of the people who are going to lead a procession. All you need is your asanka. Literally asanka.
Come with your own asanka.
Earthen bowl. Just come with your earthen bowl, asanka, and join the procession. We're going to march. Throughout. Some streets, Principal Street here in Circle, throughout to Tiptoe Lane or Brassport, and come and converge here for the event to start.
Okay, and it's absolutely free, I hope.
Free.
So you don't just come with your earthenware bowl and you eat fufu for free.
Great.
Okay. I just want you to reiterate, Charles, the details so that we wrap up and nobody forgets what's when and where it's happening. So we are starting.
Okay, we're starting 6 a.m. here, right on here at the Adum TV multimedia.
So starting point, 6 a.m. right here, Kukumimli.
So make your point here. You're going to come here to see a setup done to cater for you. You're going to have seating, washing stations, security, all the things that are necessary to make such an event successful. Food is going to be served as early as 6 a.m.
But Charles, who's eating fufu at 6 a.m.?
Oh,
hey.
you never know.
I mean, you
have people who
I like
really
fufu, but I don't think I can eat fufu at 6
even
a.m.
in the night.
It's funny. It's funny. Let me tell you what. It's funny. There are people who must eat fufu and take their medication as early as 6. Yes.
Okay.
That's why we are doing 6 a.m.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I wish you the very best, and I'll bring my asanka just to come and see what this is all about.
There's going to be entertainment.
Okay.
I must say that it's not only going to be, party eating here. There's going to be, it's a full bouquet. It's a full bouquet. We promise this year's experience is going to be unforgettable. Let me tell you, we are getting Amrado. Amrado will be here. Joyce Blessing is coming. Okay. MOG is coming. Samolusu is coming.
That started, huh?
Good. So you don't want to miss it.
Okay.
And there are going to be comedians. There are going to be comedians who are going to deliver some comedic relief for us as you eat, you enjoy.
It's going to be big. It's going to be big. One more detail. Is there a number to call?
How do they get in touch? You can call the front desk of our stations and do that. But before you do let us go, I just want to acknowledge some of the sponsors that are supporting us.
Yes, go ahead.
We have the likes of TT Natural Spices, Aiko Spices, Office, Franco Trading Enterprise, City Black Tonic, EdHec powered by SM Beaters, Ghana Ace Commission collaboration with UNFPA, including Palm Soup Base, Tasty Tom, Onion and Pepper, Star Beer, Volta Catch, Paso Beaters, Saffron, Ice, Mineral Water, and the likes.
A lot more, huh? Well, so, yeah. If you don't, now that they've cancelled the Independence Day march, I'm sure this is where people will be trooping to eat some food.
I agree with you.
Charles Nice, event coordinator, Oswina J is acting relationship manager from Adom, and they are inviting you to join them on the 6th of March, right here at the Multimedia Car Park for Fufu, because it's a Fufu party. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
All right, stay because we're bringing you what's happening in the trends.
Hello there, good morning. The internet never sleeps and neither do the trends.
From viral videos to drama, anything that's making waves will serve you here, you know?
Well, over here, expect the laughs, the shade, and the hottest tea, set fresh with me, Jacqueline Ansmayewa, and my amazing co-host,
Derek Elom Ashelevi. This in the trends, this is where the internet comes to life. Of course, buckle up, we've got you ready. We don't have time today, so now, yeah, cough faster, I don't know. Our first story is a story that is of quite some great concern to me.
Yeah.
It's a surge in violence in senior high schools.
Yeah.
I don't know what's happening, but over the weekend, there was the super zonals last week. I mean, season used to be fun and an energy.
It used to be fun. As someone who schooled in Kumasi, it used to be fun, free and devoid of violence. But now, violence everywhere, chaos everywhere.
And shockingly, there have been a few clashes that have been happening. I'll give you the breakdown of all you see behind me.
Yeah.
But see the story of what happened over the weekend, the super zone, and the clashes between different senior high schools. We'll bring you comments on that. Charlie, this is no joke. Just so you know, during the super zonals, we have Tuasi Senior High School clashing with Osei 2. In fact, one Tuasi boy found himself in a group of... And what they did to the boy was very sad.
Knocking him,
beating him, slapping him. And I'm just imagining that guy becoming a senior eventually, and also meeting a Form 1. You retaliate. Yeah. We also saw T.I. Amas hurling stones at St. Louis. And that's what one of the stones hit somebody's car. Nana, they've called the boys to pay for it, you know. Yeah. And of course, armed forces, SHTS and other schools where I had to be escorted out because Charlie is becoming, like, right. What's happening, you know. Jackie, of course, we had extra clashes where Christian Methodist students were in a wild fight with residents over an allegedly phone that was stolen. So-called the SHTS had to be closed down because they also clashed with the community. Shockingly, Boko SHS and Boko Technical also clashed during a peace ceremony.
With also residents in the community too.
You know.
I mean, it's been crazy over the last few weeks. Let's see what social media has been saying. So, Akia Susanna says that students nowadays misbehave too much. I don't know where they learn this, where they learn how. I don't know where they learned this. She doesn't know where this rowdiness is also from. And this one also, the next comment here says that Real Life says that they should just test these guys for hard drugs abuse, and 90, if not all, will test positive to it. Hard drugs is destroying the youth of this country. Well, that's his opinion too. Words of wisdom, Tad Ghana Police and says that, so Ghana Police no go do anything about these disturbing videos till someone dies in the act. Before you people go write plenty statement here in Abi? Well, he also says that lawlessness. And the other comment here says that this one, the faces showed. So still tagging Ghana, please. Setreba says that what kind of indiscipline act is going on in the high schools in Ghana and others. So everybody on social media has been expressing great concern when it comes to the indiscipline on in our senior high schools. Yeah. And
flipping it to the side of this matured student, which is the university student, it's a very sad story where a fourth-year KNUST student is stabbed, killed, shockingly, by someone that they are perpetuating, allegedly, her boyfriend, yes, sort of,
Yeah.
And he was arraigned for court and it's quite sad.
Remanded for 2 weeks.
Wow.
Yes.
Jackie, what has social media got to say on this story?
Well, first comments, as additional security measures, I think all universities should ban late nights and dawn or early morning lectures. At these odd hours, crime can be committed.
Yeah.
The second comment here says, why did you wait for a tragedy to occur before thinking about providing protection? It's unacceptable that it took a loss of life for you to realize the importance of prioritizing our security. Let me get one last comment here. Stephen Osei Akoto says that why did our parents send us to school for? What was their goal? Did we get aligned on that goal? God help our generation.
Very sad story.
Yes.
I'm not excited about. This story is one that is quite shocking. And I think, give me the juice on this one. How does somebody's testicles get, bitten or whatever?
I was actually shocked by this story that was trending last week, Friday. So a bar operator, I mean, she had a misunderstanding with a customer.
Okay.
Right? The customer, she sells cigarettes. So the customer...
okay. Jots.
Jots.
Oh,
yes,
okay.
that's Jots. And apparently, the customer was owing her 20 pesos. So it's not 50 pesos, 20 pesos. So according to the story that was trending, that she bit the customer's testicles. Yes, she bit the customer's testicles.
Over 20
pesos, yes. The guy came and said that, oh, madam, I'm not owing you. I've already given you the money. The woman said, no, you are still owing me. As to how she found her way down, no one knows.
It's very shocking.
Yes, no one knows.
I'm told that some people are alleging that she didn't bite. She pulled to
yes,
the point where...
that's the update we got from our regional correspondent. Wow. And he said that when they were in court on Friday, the man bled profusely in court. They had to rush him back to the hospital. But then the woman in court says that she didn't bite the man's testicle, but then she stretched it to its limit. So that was what caused that. But let's get to social media to find out what people are talking about. So Karen says that this is just simple. Just calculate everything the guy bought and show him he still owes you 20 pesos. I'm sure the woman was angry within herself before the man came.
Charlie.
She just wanted someone to release her frustration and anger on, because there's no world where this makes sense in all logicality. Last one, testicle chewer. It was the other comment here says that it was supposed to happen at Kaswa. So social media has been expressing their thoughts on it. Personally, I just think it's crazy. I have a whole lot of questions on my mind.
Oh, sorry. But this story is one that I'm excited about, because it's very sad when people build their reputation, hard work and all of that. And you just have one guy rip them apart with words, on cyberbullying. Imagine Sweetie doing this amazing job. I mean, you working waking up at dawn, coming here. And one guy takes to social media and writes a lot of very shocking things. I'm talking about Bongo Ideas in a defamation suit that, has been settled by the court. He's been directed to settle Kojo Forex 170,000 Ghana cedis. Yeah. And, people are like, can he afford? Let's see what social media has got to say on
Well, the same question everyone keeps asking, can he afford? The first comment says that Bongo Ideas go start a GoFundMe. And this one also says, at this point, Bongo is out of ideas. That was what was trending. Actually, when I saw that, what came into my mind was, can he afford it?
Well, I went to the same primary and JHS with him. Oh, okay. I know him. We've spoken about this.
Can he afford it? Okay.
God help me. One story that, of course, because this was done, I just want to skip this one and give you a lot more exciting story. It's a story where President Mahama is saying that very soon, if you are going to do your national service, you have to do and that's because they want to introduce military training.
To instill discipline in the youth. Just as the first story we talked about, there's so much chaos in discipline among our youth. And I think this is a good one, a laudable one, of course.
Great. What have people got to say on that?
First comment, military training plus 719. Not be small training. Hey, 719 plus training.
Plus training.
I mean, it's just going to be stressful. People have been asking, thank God, say man passed through this already. Yeah, thank God we've passed
through Charlie, that. I'm glad I'm not going to be doing a
Yeah. And this one says that one thing I loved about the SONA is the military training in SHS, in NSS. Yes, everyone is actually expressing their opinion on this one. And this and many more other stories have been trending on social media. I'm Jacqueline and Sumaya Bua.
My name is Derek Hello-Mashilivi, and of course, we'll serve you that. If it happens, we'll serve you. Crossing over to the ever beautiful, dashing, sizzling, hot, spicy, sweetie, abochi. Sweetie, take it away.
You guys have become my favorite part of the show on Mondays. Thank you so much for bringing us what's in the trends. And that will be our show for this morning, Monday, the 3rd of March, 2025. But coming up...